Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto befriends all bijuu in Chunin exams. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Mystic the Kitsune and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Disclaimer. I do not own Naruto. If I did, I would have probably changed a lot of it. After Naruto and Sasuke's rematch. Naruto and Sasuke had just freed everyone from the Tsukuyomi and the tailed beast from the Chibaku Tensei when the Sage of Six Paths, Hagoromo, appeared. "Congratulations, boys," he said with a smile to Sasuke and Naruto. "You two truly are the ones who brought peace to this world. We still have some unfinished business though," he said, making Naruto and Sasuke serious. The three were by themselves with only the bijuu with them. "I see now that letting the tailed beast run free will only cause havoc once again." They all nodded, knowing it to be true, since it only took one person drunk off power to try and destroy the world. Agai and Kofmadirkov. "There is only one safe place for all of the bijuu. Naruto, if would do me the honor of becoming their Jinchuriki. Do not worry about them fusing, because without the Jito statue they will not fuse," he said, knowing what Naruto was about to argue about. Of course, only he noticed the sharp look the bijuu gave him when he asked Naruto to become the Jinchuriki of all nine. "I see, if this helps everybody, I would be honored to take up the role," Naruto said, smiling. The bijuu all sighed, knowing what was to come. "I see, thank you then, Naruto," Hagoromo said, smiling before he clapped his hands and black lines spread from him straight to the bijuu. They all converted into chakra and were sucked into Naruto with a new seal that was better than his last one. "I am so sorry, Naruto," he said as he disappeared. Once he was gone, Naruto started screaming, shocking Sasuke, who had been watching without saying anything. Naruto's body started glowing white before a huge explosion happened with him at its epicenter. The explosion was so large it expanded, covering the whole elemental nations, eradicating everything. In the epicenter, Naruto was in extreme pain before he blacked out, not noticing a black hole opening in his location sucking him into it. Naruto groaned as he opened his eyes again, not noticing the higher pitch to his voice. He cursed that old man. He didn't say it would hurt so bad. He looked up and saw an unfamiliar ceiling greeting him. He noticed he was in a bed way more comfortable than the one in his apartment. He was trying to figure out where he was and what happened. The last thing he remembered was the old sage sealing all of the tailed beasts inside of him before extreme pain racked his body. He was about to get up before he felt a familiar pull on his subconscious. Allowing it, he found himself in the wide expanse his shared mindscape had become when he visited the tailed beasts. He found all 9 of them looking at him with a weird expression. Kurama though looked like he was about to bust a vein from trying to not laugh. "Okay, what's going?" Naruto stopped talking when he heard his voice. It was different. It sounded like a little kid was talking. Starting to feel dread well up in him, he finally looked down at himself. He noticed his body was small and he looked at his hands to find them mini-sized. Isobu, taking pity of Naruto, summoned a mirror of water in front of him. When Naruto looked at himself, he found his fears confirmed. For staring right back at him was a little version of himself. He was wearing an orange long-sleeved shirt with a black pair of shorts. "Kaya!" he screamed before fainting. It was then that it was too much for Kurama and he started laughing and rolling around. "Oh, this is too much," he said before being smacked by Matatabi. Kurama settled down. "You know what this means," she scolded him. At that, Kurama controlled himself, but he let out a snicker every once in a while. "Yeah, I do, which is why I wanted to laugh now and not later," he said finally. At that moment, Naruto woke back up. "Why am I small again? What happened? It's the old man's fault, isn't it? I bet Sasuke is laughing his ass off at me. Ooh, when I get my hands on those two." Naruto rapid-fired before he calmed down enough and turned to look at the bijuu. They all looked at him with pity now that he recognized the looks. "What happened?" Naruto asked, feeling the dread increased. "Naruto, before I begin, let me say that we do not know why the old man did it." Kurama began with a serious air about him, confusing Naruto at first, but he just nodded his head, showing he would not blame the bijuu for whatever the old man did. "You see, when we were all sealed into you without the Jito statue to act as a buffer for all of our chakra, it caused an explosion on a massive scale. The Jito statue acts as a buffer to hold our chakra and to fuse us, so without it, when all of our chakra converges into one place, it explodes. The explosion was so big it engulfed all of the elemental nations and tore a hole in the fabric of time and space, sending you through it. We then continued to travel through the fabric of time and space until your chakra and body stabilized enough to enter the dimension we were closest to." Throughout Kurama's explanation, Naruto's eyes became bigger and bigger, with his mouth opened in shock and tears began welling up in his eyes. "Once we entered, your spirit claimed your body of this dimension, and here we are now. We are in an alternate universe, hence you being a kid again. I am unsure of what other changes happened. I do know that you're about 8 years old right now. Since we're all stabilized now we don't have to worry about exploding again. Kurama finished. So all my friends and loved ones are gone now? Naruto said quietly, letting the tears fall. The now 8-year-old hugged his legs close to his body. Yes, but there is hope, Naruto. A new voice said, surprising all of them. They turned to find the old sage in the mindscape with them. Naruto's eyes changed to fury before he just sighed. I want to hate you right now, but I know you did it to make a reality where nobody can abuse their power again, but how can you say there is still hope? He said, yelling the last part with tears of frustration on his face. Because I controlled your destination and picked a universe where the only change was minuscule in comparison to the other universes. He said, unperturbed at the shout. Meaning you can still befriend everyone and you can save more people since you know what will happen. He said, shocking him. I see. He said, coming to terms a little bit with what he meant. Now, I am also here to tell you that your past wasn't greatly affected as things went only a little differently in this universe. Here, well yes, your parents still sacrificed themselves, the Sandaime was able to keep your being a Jinchuriki a secret. He also informed you of who your mother was, so you're living in your parents' house right now. He said, shocking Naruto at the ramifications of this as it meant no more glares are being ignored. Your name ironically is still Naruto Uzumaki in this universe. Before you came here, your current goal was to follow in your mother's footsteps and become the Hokage, whilst you planned to specialize in the same things she did. Kinjutsu and Fuinjutsu. Although now that you're here, I assume that will change since you know both of your parents. You also know the Shadow Clone Jutsu's secret meaning, so you can specialize in literally everything. Before I go, I should tell you to ask the bijuu about the bloodline some of them passed on to you. I will tell you that since you're a relative of the Sandaime, that when your water and earth elements are strong enough, you can unlock the Mokuton. Goodbye and good luck in your second life, Naruto. Oh, one last thing, in this world, you're not constantly watched by Hiruzen because he does not fear that you will die, meaning you can use that as an excuse as to why you're so strong, but you will eventually have to tell him about some things. Hagoromo said after fading away from the long speech. He imparted the rest of future Naruto's memories onto alternate dimension Naruto as well. Well guys, it seems we need to get busy. I already know for sure that my chakra control was shot to hell with all of you being here. So, what was that he said about some of you giving bloodlines to your Jinchuriki? Naruto asked curiously. Well, Naruto, all of the bijuu have special abilities that their containers reflect. For example, Shukaku has the magnet release, Matatabi has a special blue fire that all of your fire style will inherit now, and Isobu grants his host masterful control of water. As you know from Son Goku, he gifts you with lava release, Seiken has acid release, Chimei has scale release, Jayuki has ink release, and I, as you know, can mold nature chakra for you and heal you. Kurama explained to a starry-eyed Naruto. I remember using Shukaku and Son Goku's abilities in the war. I can't believe I will get to have so many cool new jutsu. It is also uncopyable. Ha, take that team. Naruto said back to his cheerful self at the prospect of all of these new powers. You do know that you will have to train far harder than anybody because of all the new powers, right? I mean you also have a chance to unlock Mokuton. We have 4 years before you make Genin. You should use this time to your fullest extent and abuse the special ability of shadow clones. Plus, you can't forget Kinjutsu and Fuinjutsu. Kurama told him. Yay, I know. I think to fully utilize this we should talk to Jiji and tell him about the whole situation, that way I can skip the academy on his permission and only come for the exams. He said. Then as if remembering something her face went beet red in anger. Aw man, I can't believe I am short again. I hope I will hit my growth spurt faster now that I can eat better this time around. Naruto shouted. At this Kurama started laughing again as if remembering the situation. Naruto gained a tick mark at this. Boy, you stupid fox, it's not like I asked to be a kid again. He shouted at it. Don't worry Naruto, we will help you. Matatabi said soothingly while Chimei rounded on Kurama. Thanks. He said with a smile. He then faded away out of his mindscape. Finally waking up, Naruto looked around his room. Now that he knew where he was, he got up and walked to the bathroom. Once in there, he removed his clothes and quickly got in the shower. Once out of the shower, he went to his drawers and pulled out his clothes for the day. Putting on a mesh shirt first and then a sleeveless orange kimono top over that. He then put on a different pair of black shorts. He also put on his black shinobi sandals and finally left the house. Outside, he found himself in the woods behind the Hokage monument. He sighed before jumping away heading to the tower. 5 minutes later, he nervously walked up to the Hokage's secretary. He just remembered this would be the first time he's seen his Jiji alive in 3 years. No, excuse me, is the Hokage busy? He politely asked. From this Naruto's memories, he was not hated and he was not a troublemaker, and so was politer. The secretary looked up and smiled. Oh hello Naruto-chan. He isn't, so you can go in. She said. Naruto smiled and walked up to the door, resisting the urge to kick it open like he usually did. Knocking, he heard an enter and took a deep breath before opening the doors. There he was, sitting behind his desk like he used to, looking peaceful. He controlled himself and spoke. Gigi, we need to talk. It's serious, so can you seal the room? He said seriously. This surprised Hiruzen before he nodded, seeing him serious. Anbu, please walk out. He said and 4 people materialized before disappearing again. He then waved hand signs before sealing the room. Okay Naruto-kun, what's wrong? He asked in a grandfatherly way before he was surprised as he hugged him whilst crying as he was not able to hold himself back anymore. I missed you so much, Gigi. He said crying into his robes. But we went out for ramen yesterday. What's wrong? He asked confused. Getting control over himself he let go of him and stood up before wiping his eyes. It's not that, you see, I am from the future. He said. He then held up a hand before he could say anything. Before you get skeptical, I will show you proof. He said and held up a hand. Guys, help me with chakra control for a second. He asked the bijuu before a blue sphere of energy formed in his hands, causing Hiruzen to drop his pipe in shock. Naruto let the Rasengan dissipate before facing him serious again. Explain. Hiruzen said, taking this seriously now. I plan to take advantage of all of my knowledge of the future, Gigi, so please don't press if I leave out information. Just know I will inform you when something important comes up, as nothing major will happen until I am 12. He began and he nodded. Alright then, first I am unsure if he has been recruited with them yet, but Itachi joins an organization called the Akatsuki, whose main goal was to gather all the bijuu. By the time I am 15, they had gathered all but 8 tails and 9 tails. All the other nations, finally recognizing them as a threat, called a meeting in which the Shinobi Alliance was formed from the 5 great nations. It then turned into a full-blown-out war because Orochimaru's apprentice mastered the Edo Tensei and summoned hundreds of dead S-class shinobi. An army was made out of a missing nin named Zetsu, who were the rabbit goddess's sons. We were advantageous in the war until one event changed it. He said. During this Hiruzen's eyes were getting wider and wider, especially from his intimate knowledge of Orochimaru and Itachi. He was also scared to learn that his old student knew the Edo Tensei. That event was the Edo Tensei being used to revive Madara Uchiha. Gasp. With the advantages of the Edo Tensei, he slaughtered countless shinobi. I had mastered the Kyuubi's chakra at this point and was in full-tailed beast transformation fighting. We were stalemating because Orochimaru switched sides and joined us and summoned the previous Hokage with the shot aim stalemating Madara. The instigator of all of this and the one who attacked Konoha on my birth and released the Kyuubi was Obito Uchiha. Bigger gasp. He had Jiraiya's old student under his thumb, Nagato, who I myself killed when he destroyed Konoha. They managed to get his Rinnegan eyes and used one of its power to fully revive Madara to the world of the living. Since his impatience got the better of him, he used fragments of the Kyuubi's and Gyuki's chakra to revive an incomplete Gyuubi. He took a breath before continuing. This is where things got bad because that thing caused us to have to send most of the shinobi back and only heavy hitters could even stay alive with it. Further along, Madara absorbed it into himself and became on the level of the Sage of 6 Paths. He was decimating us even more before his body was usurped by Kaguya Otsutsuki, the rabbit goddess and progenitor of chakra. She was untouchable and killed everything. At this point, me and Sasuke Uchiha found out we were transmigrants of Asura and Indra, and the chakra activated giving us 2 special seals that would seal away Kaguya if we touched her at the same time. It was not easy and she could create dimensions, but after many losses we finally tagged her and sealed her into the moon. Using our power, we split up the Gyuubi back into the bijuu. I will glance over the rest, for it's not knowledge I can let out, but I was named as the safest place for all of the bijuu, since I managed to befriend all of them, and they were all sealed into me, albeit separately to avoid the Gyuubi. He said, finished with his long explanation. Hiruzen, having gotten over his shock, was listening intently. It had an unintended consequence in that without the body of the Gyuubi able to hold the combined chakra of the tailed beast, it exploded as a massive chakra bomb that punched through time and space, and I woke up here after stabilizing, making fear of another bomb moot. He finished finally. For a while a long silence ensued until Hiruzen finally spoke. So you say nothing starts until you're 12. You could have hid this information and just waited. Why come to me immediately? He asked, wondering as to his motive. Naruto scratched the back of his head. Well, I was hoping you could make it so I don't have to attend the academy and just go straight to the genin exams. He has only been there a year and it was not the heirs class. You see, I have a lot of training to do and have to get my chakra control back since 8 other tailed beasts getting sealed inside of me ruined my control because I have a lot more chakra now. Also, having them there caused me to inherit a lot of bloodlines to train in and since I trust you I will list them. I have magnet style, lava style, acid style, ink style, scale style, boil style, masterful control of water style, the two tails blue fire, and since I am a distant relative of the senju and have strong affinities for earth and water, I have wood style. I have all 5 affinities because of this as well. He stated this. This is what caused Hiruzen to drop his jaw and stare in surprise. I see, I can grant you this since I trust you, Naruto-kun. I would rather promote you now, but since there is a law made to prevent another Itachi, I have to wait until you pass the genin exams. I will send you scrolls to help you along the way, Naruto-kun, and will visit when I can. He said with a smile. He also air-quoted Itachi. Naruto smiled in relief at this. Alright, before I go I have some parting advice, Jiji, that will prove useful in the future. First, you're the Hokage and this is a dictatorship, meaning the civilian council has nothing over you. Second, make sure Kakashi is not allowed to stagnate anymore. It is critical that he regains his strength. His poor teaching skills almost got us killed on our first C-rank mission. He said, telling him who his genin sensei was. He nodded with a new fire in his eyes at the revelations to all of this. Especially at remembering that Konoha was destroyed. Oh, also called Jiraiya, I want my summons back. I was a toad summoner and already mastered sage training at 15. He said, leaving the room. Hiruzen just chuckled. Always unpredictable, eh, Naruto-kun? He said aloud before he got to work. Some things were not going to happen this time around. Once Naruto got home he went to the backyard of his house and summoned 1,000 clones with the help of the bijuu's chakra. Step 1. Chakra control. He said before getting to work. 4 years later. Alright class, before we take the exam someone else is joining us to take them. Haruka announced to the class of genin hopefuls. Of course this earned shouting. What? How come they could skip the academy? Kiba shouted. They were trained outside of the village and received permission from Hokage-sama. Haruka said. There was still some grumbling, but everyone knew they could not go against the Hokage. Alright, you can come in now. Haruka said to the door. It opened up and once the student walked in, a bunch of the girls blushed and started drooling, while the guys were jealous instantly. The guy that walked in had spiky radiant blonde hair with 2 bangs framing his face, making him look like a mini yandere. His face was cute with 6 black lines adorning his cheeks like whiskers, making some of the girls want to pet it. He had cerulean blue eyes. He wore a long-sleeved orange kimono-like shirt with a dark embroidered border, held close with a black obi, and on the bottom left side of the shirt was a red Uzumaki SWIRL what Kushina wore as a genin except orange and black with long sleeves, and black anbu pants with pockets, along with black shinobi sandals. He had an ninjato strapped horizontally across the waist of his back. All in all, he looked extremely cute. It is customary to introduce yourself and state your goal. Haruka said with a kind smile which he returned. Hi, you're her son, huh? That's a great goal you have there as well. Well, just take a seat and we can begin. Haruka said smiling. Naruto at first wondered where Mizuki was before he remembered he was captured as a spy last week, trying to steal the forbidden scroll since he wasn't there this time. He took a seat at the back and waited for the test to begin. Okay class, first we will take the written exam, then throwing, taijutsu, and finally ninjutsu. I will now pass out the written exam. Haruka explained while passing out the test. You have an hour. Begin. He said, and like that everyone started. 1 hour later they were outside standing in front of test dummies. I will now give you 10 kunai and 10 shuriken. This test will test your accuracy and speed of throwing. He said, having the kids line up. The clan heirs performed as was expected of them, and some civilians did good as well. Sasuke scored the best, getting perfect accuracy with good speed. Naruto was up last, and he grabbed all of the shuriken at once, held them cross-armed, and released so fast, it was a blur to the genin hopefuls. They all embedded in fatal areas. He repeated it with the kunai. All buried deep into the post. He earned a perfect score as well as superb speed. Sasuke was now more intently interested in him. Next up is taijutsu. I will spar with you, and you have 2 minutes to land a sufficient amount of hits in the time limit or push me out of the ring. Bonus points if you manage to get me out of the ring. He explained to them. Again as expected the clan heirs performed well with Sasuke managing to get Haruka to take a step out of the ring. Next was Naruto. He stepped into the ring and got into a stance none of them recognized, except for the Hokage who was watching with his telescope jutsu. He smirked when he saw the stance, knowing Haruka was going to hurt after this. Hajime. Haruka called. Instantly, Naruto was in his guard aiming a knife hand for his throat, which he brought an arm to block, too late to notice that was what he wanted, and his other hand sent a flat palm to his arm he was using to block, and he used his knife hand to hit him straight into the chest, sending him back a bit. Haruka coughed a bit at the strength of the hit before charging him. He did not know that was what the style wanted him to do though, plus he was limiting himself to genin level anyways, so it should have not surprised him to see him counter his punch by using his arms to grab his and swivel behind him as he sent a high kick to the back of his head, making him stumble out of the ring. The others were in awe at Naruto's taijutsu ability, while Sasuke smirked at this. After picking himself up and rubbing the sore areas, he announced the last part would be done in the classroom. The ninjutsu part consisted of the henge, kawarimi and clone jutsu, as well as one extra jutsu as a bonus. The clan heirs got this easy with each of them showing their signature jutsu as a bonus. The civilians that did do it had no bonus to fall back on. Sasuke showed off a fireball jutsu, earning squeals from his fangirls. He just smirked. Again, it was Naruto's turn with everyone watching him now that he was perfecting everything. "Alright Naruto-kun, henge into me." He said, and with one hand sign he did so easily. "Okay, switch with the chair next to me." He said again, one hand seal later he did so. "Okay, perform the clone jutsu." He said, and without any hand sign another Naruto appeared next to her. Surprised at his abilities so far, he asked if he wanted to do a bonus jutsu. Naruto just smirked and decided to show off like Sasuke. He held the serpent sign in front of his mouth in lava style. "Molten shot." He said, and his mouth swelled before he shot out a molten glob at the training dummy. The second it made contact, it melted through it. Panicking Iruka used a water jutsu to put it out before it could catch anything on fire. "Deke Genkai?" Iruka asked, surprised at the level of nature manipulation. He just nodded, smiling still. "Ha, I see, well congratulations, you pass. Pick a headband and head back to your seat." He picked a black cloth one and tied it around his neck. Before facing the shocked class and sat down. Iruka then explained how proud he was of all of them before dismissing them, saying they needed to be there tomorrow for team assignments. At that, all the newly minted genin left. Naruto was smiling happily as he left. Of course, he was accosted by his classmates the second he was outside. "That was amazing. I didn't know there was another Kekkei Genkai user in Konoha." Kiba said amazed. Naruto rubbed the back of his head. "Yeah, I just have not been in the village all that much. I live near it, not in it." He answered him. I see, well anyways, wanna go get some ramen with me and the others?" He asked, pointing at the other rookie genin waiting for him. Naruto smiled and nodded. "Sure. I happen to know a good place if you all want to go to it." He asked. "I am cool with whatever." Shikamaru answered and everyone nodded. Even Sasuke was attending this time. "Awesome, let's go to Ichiraku's. They have the best ramen ever." He said cheerfully and grabbed Kiba, dragging him along. The others chuckled at his upbeat attitude and followed. 10 minutes later they were led to a small ramen stand. Walking in, Naruto called out to the chef. "Hey Tucci, my friends and I want some ramen." Naruto said cheerfully. Tucci turned and smiled. "Of course, anything for my number one customer Naruto-kun." He said back as the rookie 12 sat down. "So where do you live, Naruto?" Shikamaru asked, curious. "My house is located in the woods above the Hokage monument." He answered back. "I see, that must be cool. So, is the lava style your clan's Kekkei Genkai or something?" He asked. The others were just listening in. I only know one Uzumaki other than me who has it and a couple people in Iwa woke it. It has to deal with how strong your affinities are for fire and earth at birth. If you have really high affinities for them, you can unlock it." He said, not mentioning anything about the fact that he had a lot more. "I see." Shikamaru said, his curiosity sated. "Oh Naruto-chan, is that you?" asked as she set down their bowls of ramen, and upon noticing Naruto, she ran over to him and hugged him tight like he was a stuffed animal, making Naruto blush immensely. All the rookies laughed at this and began eating. "Well, I need to get home, it was nice meeting all of you," Naruto said cheerfully after he was done before getting up and leaving. Ino had hearts in her eyes as he left. "He is so awesome," she stated, causing the others to roll their eyes at her switch of guys and Sakura to pump her fist at the loss of a love rival. After Naruto left, he went to the Hokage's office to speak with him. After he was allowed in, he found him alone. "Hey Jiji," he said cheerfully. Hiruzen chuckled at his usual attitude. "Hello, Naruto-kun. So I take your endeavors were successful?" he asked. Naruto nodded. "Yep. I have full control of my chakra and full control of all my nature releases," he said happy. This greatly surprised Hiruzen at his proclamation, as that was basically saying he was seriously advanced. "Oh, and how did you accomplish training in so many natures?" he asked, curious. His response was a deadpan. "Jiji, shadow clones and monster chakra reserves," he said. "Ah," he said as that explained everything. Only Naruto could train like that because the mental strain was handled by the bijuu and his reserves were so large it wouldn't hurt him. "Anyways, I came by Jiji because in a couple of months a man from Nami will request a C rank. Send my team on the mission." he said quietly and seriously, too quiet for the Anbu to hear. Hiruzen nodded, understanding that it was an important event. Alright, see you later Jiji. He said and left smiling. Hiruzen smiled at his cheerful attitude, hoping he could see the day he was named Hokage. Yes, he would lead this village to a greater future. He thought before getting back to work. Disclaimer. I do not own Naruto. If I did, Naruto would not be an idiot. The next day. Naruto woke in a great mood and got dressed in his shinobi clothes he wore yesterday. He had found several sets of it in his closet from his mom's time as a genin, so he decided to use it, only changing the colors around and making it a male version with long sleeves. After strapping his ninjato on his back, he left his house for the academy. He cheerfully greeted all the villagers he passed and they waved back at the cheerful boy. He was so glad his status was a secret this time around, as it meant he could create bonds without worries. He arrived at the academy and cheerfully greeted his fellow genin before sitting down, getting ready for team assignments. Haruka arrived and everyone settled down. Before I say your teams, let me tell how proud I am of all of you. You all now represent this village and the Hokage, so make us proud. He said smiling at them. Okay, let's begin. Team 1 is Team 7 is Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Harunoku Sakura's power of love over Ino, and Naruto Uzumaki all. The girls were jealous now of Sakura for having the two hottest guys in class on her team. Your sensei is Kakashi Haddock, Haruka said. Sasuke himself sighed as he was glad he had Naruto, as he showed he was powerful and was better than everyone there, and was glad he had him on his team to counterbalance Sakura's weakness. Team 8 is Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Inuzuka, and Shino Aburam. Your sensei is Kurenai. Team 10 is Ino Yamanaka, Shikamaru Nara, and Choji Akimichi. Your sensei is Asuma Sarutobi. Your Jonin senseis will be here in a few minutes to pick you up. Good luck all of you. He said and left the room. After he left, the Jonin senseis came in. One had a beard and a sash with a symbol of fire on it and called Team 10. A beautiful woman with long black hair and a white and red kimono like top called Team 8. After everyone was all called, only Sakura, Sasuke, and Naruto were left. Why is only our sensei late? Complained Sakura. Our sensei is Kakashi Haddock. He is perpetually late by 3 hours to every meeting. You might as well get comfortable. Naruto informed her, catching Sasuke's interest. You know him? He asked. Yay, he was a friend of my mom's. He is known as Kakashi of the Sharingan, as he received one from his Uchiha teammate on a mission when he died. He is said to have copied 1,000 jutsus, earning the moniker Copycat Kakashi. He is one of the strongest jonin in the village. He is usually late because he visits the memorial stone on Training Ground 7. He informed them, shocking his teammates at his knowledge. Sasuke, even more so when he heard his sensei had the Sharingan. He is probably there now. If you guys want to just meet him there? He asked. They nodded and so he got up and motioned them to follow him. 30 minutes later, they arrived at the training ground to find their sensei standing at the memorial stone. He had gravity-defying silver hair. He had a mask covering his face and wore the standard Jonin attire. His headband was pulled down to cover one eye, which Sasuke assumed was the Sharingan. Hey Kakashi-sensei, you were supposed to meet us 30 minutes ago in the classroom. Naruto called out to him. He turned around and I smiled. Oh, but my cute little genin decided to meet me out here. How am I supposed to oppose that? He said, causing them to sweat drop since they would have stayed in the classroom if Naruto hadn't been there. Well, since you're here, why don't we introduce ourselves? I am sure Naruto-kun has already told you a little bit about me. He said with an eye smile. With Naruto knowing about his mother, Kakashi was allowed to visit Naruto when he had free time, so they already had a good relationship. Pinky, you first. He said, pointing to Sakura. How do you want to introduce ourselves, sensei? She said, causing Kakashi to sigh. You know your likes, dislikes, dreams for the future. He answered. Oh, okay then, my name is Sakura Haruno and the thing I like, or I mean whom I dream for the future, is to I dislike Ino Pig. She said, causing the other to sigh at her fangirl answer. Kakashi pointed to Sasuke next. You next, Mr. Broody. He said, causing Sasuke to scowl. My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I don't like anything and I have lots of things I dislike. I don't have a dream, but I have an ambition to kill a certain man. He said. Kakashi then pointed to Naruto, who smiled cheerfully. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I like ramen, ninjutsu, kinjutsu and fuinjutsu. I dislike the time it takes to make ramen and people who can't tell the difference between a scroll and a kunai sealed into it. I hate rapists. My dream for the future is to be the Hokage. He said happily. Kakashi smiled at his intro. So I have a fangirl, an avenger and a budding seal master. He thought, although he did not know Naruto's level. He may have visited him, but he did not know his strength. He just knew he was advanced in a lot of things, which was why he was glad he was on his team. Okay then. Be here tomorrow at 6 and don't eat breakfast or you will throw up. We will be doing the real genin test to which it has a 66% fail rate. Jana. He said smiling at two of the shocked faces before he disappeared in a poof of smoke. Before you guys leave, you should eat breakfast. He likes to play mind games and show up 2 hours late. Naruto informed them before disappearing in a swirl of leaves, shocking his teammates again. Sasuke just tch''d at the unknown jutsu before he walked away, avoiding Sakura's attempt at asking him out on a date. The next morning at 8. Naruto arrived in the clearing and took in his teammate's haggard appearance, raising an eyebrow. I told you so. He said. They just humphed at him. He just smiled at them though. Well, you're in luck, I made some extra food just in case you two didn't listen. He said and black lines appeared on his arm before he unsealed 2 hot bowls of ramen. He handed it to the both of them who both took it with a thank you and ate it hungrily. 30 minutes later Kakashi arrived in the training ground. You're late. Sakura yelled at him. He just chuckled and I smiled. Well you see, a black cat crossed my path so I had to take the long way around before I ran into an old lady and had to help her with her groceries. Then, I just got lost on the road of life. He said. This caused all 3 of them to sweat drop at the lame excuse. Kakashi had a backpack with him and took it over to 3 stumps. He pulled out an alarm clock and 2 bells. Alright, the alarm is set for noon. Your goal is to get one of these bells from me. One of you will inevitably fail and be sent back to the academy. You have until noon to do so. Good luck, the test begins now. Oh, and come at me with intent to kill or else you won't even touch me. As soon as he said that, the 3 jumped away. They're all hidden well. I can see Sasuke over there in the tree and Sakura in the bushes and as expected Naruto completely disappeared. I wonder if he knows the meaning of the test. He thought as he took out a book to read. But Naruto as soon as the test began. Once Naruto disappeared into the woods, he created 2 shadow clones to find his teammates. The first clone went to find Sasuke and the other went after Sakura. But shadow clone number 1. It had just located Sasuke who was in a tree. Sasuke. He whispered getting his attention as he whirled around to attack but calmed down when he saw him. What? He said. Like I told you two yesterday, Kakashi likes to play mind games. This test is a trick to separate us. Konoha is all about teamwork and that's the meaning of this test. There is no such thing as a 2-genin squad, it's always a 3-man squad. He informed him. Sasuke's eyes widened. I see, so this is to see if we will work together for the bells or split up and fight over them. Plus we're newly graduated genin, so they can't expect us to beat an elite jonin like Kakashi. Sasuke said, thinking logically. Yep, and I have a plan. I am just a shadow clone, a different clone is speaking to Sakura. I need you to distract him and I can get the bells. Use this. He said, handing him something before popping. But shadow clone number 2. It had just told the same thing to Sakura and told her to help Sasuke in distracting Kakashi. It then popped as well. With Kakashi. Kakashi was reading and wondering when the first one to crack would attack before he jumped out of the way when a fireball crashed where he was. That could be either Naruto or Sasuke. His question was answered when Sasuke emerged and attacked him in a fierce taijutsu match. Oh, you're pretty good for a genin. Kakashi said when he had to slap Sasuke's hand away from the bells. He raised an eyebrow at Sasuke's smirk before his eyes widened when Sasuke jumped back and his body was littered with kunai thrown by Sakura. Sasuke's smirk never left, even with the kawarimi, though. So there's 2 of them working together, but where is Naruto? Kakashi wondered, already knowing he was up to something if he got those 2 to work together. His question was answered when 4 Narutos emerged from the ground around in a square, all with a bird hand sign in front of their faces. Fuin. 4-pillar chakra ceiling. He shouted. His eyes widened when black lines emerged from their feet to surround him. He found he couldn't move either. Then the lines grabbed him and stopped all his movement and he found his chakra sealed away. Naruto walked up to him and grabbed the bells off his waist as his 2 teammates appeared behind him. He tossed both of them a bell. How? Kakashi questioned, wondering why his body locked up just enough for Naruto to use his Fuinjutsu on him. When you battled Sasuke in the taijutsu match, I gave him a paralyzing seal to use on you which he placed on your back. Naruto said, grabbing the seal off of Kakashi's back to show him. I see. I assume you all got the reason for the test. He asked and they all said teamwork. Kakashi smiled. Congratulations Team 7, you all pass. I follow the saying that breaking the rules makes you trash, but abandoning a teammate is worse than trash. This will be our team motto. He told his team. They all smiled. Meet me here tomorrow, same time, for your first mission. He told them before sunshining away. 3 months later. Have you spotted the target? A voice said over a headset. Negative. Another voice said. Me neither. Said a new voice. I have it in my arms. Came in a different voice. But what? Naruto, how did you catch her so easily? Kakashi said, floored. I bought some cat treats before this mission. Naruto answered back over the headset while walking to the meeting point. Seriously, your intuition scares me sometimes, Naruto. Sasuke said as he met up with him to find him petting Tora, the menace of Genins. Sakura joined them a second later with Kakashi trailing behind her. It's a good thing though. Naruto said to Sasuke. He just smirked before looking away. Alright Team 7, let's head to the Hokage's tower to report the mission as a success. Kakashi said, leading them away. I wonder what our next mission is going to be. Naruto said out loud once they reached the tower. I am not too sure. Hokage-sama told me he had something special for us. Kakashi answered. Naruto responded as they knocked on his door and received an enter. Walking in, they spotted the daimyo's wife in the Hokage's office, seemingly waiting for a genin team. Upon spotting her cat, she ran to Naruto and grabbed Tora, smushing the poor thing. Seeing this, Naruto decided to take pity on it. Oh no, excuse me ma'am. The cat might not run away as much if you didn't crush it when you hug him. He said to the lady who looked at him, then back at the cat before smiling as she just hugged it softly. Actually, she is a trained cat coming from a long line of cats who are trained to help genin with their tracking. I just hug him this hard to keep up the act, you could say. The woman said, smiling at the shocked genin. Even Kakashi was shocked by this. He remembered all the scratches received from that damn cat. Congratulations on another mission past Team 7. Your continuous string of successful missions has impressed me enough to where I am assigning you your first C rank. He said, shocking all but Naruto with this information, as he knew it was coming after he had warned him of the man from Wave and the mission's parameters. This is also why he had told Kakashi to train the genin better like Minato trained him. Which was why they were more advanced than the other genin. Kakashi had already taught them tree climbing and water walking. He then brought them chakra paper to test their affinity. He remembered that day well. Flashback no jutsu. 2 months into their team's formation, Kakashi said he had something special for them. Alright guys, today we're doing something a little different. He told his team. He then got out 3 slips of paper that Naruto recognized. You're testing our affinity today? He asked. I smiled and nodded. Yes, this is chakra paper. Channeling chakra into it will show you which element you're naturally aligned to. However, that does not mean you can't train in another affinity. For example, my natural affinity is lightning, but I also trained in earth and water, granting me minor affinity for those elements. Kakashi explained to them as he handed them the paper. Now just channel some chakra in the paper and the way it reacts will tell you your element. If it burns, you're fire. It will crinkle if you're lightning. It will crumble apart if you're earth. If it soaks, you're water, and if it cuts, you're wind. He told them. They all nodded and channeled chakra into the papers, resulting in shocking results. Sasuke's crinkled to his shock and then singed a little bit, showing a main affinity for lightning and a minor for fire. Sakura's crumbled like dust, showing earth. Naruto's though shocked everyone but him. It cut into 4 pieces and 1 piece crumbled, another soaked and then another burned, and the final piece crinkled into a ball. Showing a main affinity for fire, water, earth, wind, and lightning. That's what I suspected. My main affinity before absorbing the 9 bijuu was wind. The Kekkei Genkai they gifted to me gave me the other affinities. He thought before looking at his teammates' shocked expressions. Although, Kakashi wasn't, as he knew about 2 of his Kekkei Genkai, but was still shocked to find he had all 5 affinities. Don't be so shocked. This happens when people have elemental Kekkei Genkai. My lava style, as I have showed you before, is a combination of fire and earth. I can also perform boil style, which is water and fire. The wind I can use to combine with earth to use magnet style. He told his 2 shocked teammates and now shocked sensei who didn't know about his magnet release. He knew he would need to speak with the Hokage to see if he would have any more shocks. Sasuke didn't know whether to be jealous or smirk at how strong he was, as the 2 had a rivalry going, even if Naruto seems far more advanced than he was. Sakura was just awed at how strong her teammate was. Although I don't use my magnet style that much. He said sheepishly while rubbing the back of his head. The other's sweat dropped at him not using a powerful Kekkei Genkai when it was available to him. Anyways, now that you know your elements, I can get you started on your training in them. When you complete the first exercise, I will teach you a jutsu for that style. Naruto, I already know you're advanced in your elements, so I recommend training in your magnet style, since you just admitted you don't use it much. He said to them. Naruto saluted before going to his own spot of the clearing and throwing around a bunch of kunai before using jutsu to move them. Alright, for you too. The first elemental exercise is the same for all of the elements. Just take a leaf and try to recreate what the chakra paper did, using only your chakra. He told them before they nodded and set off to do that. Flashback no jutsu. Kai. Your mission will be to guard a bridge builder to Wave Country. He told them before he paged his secretary to let the man in. They looked at the door to see an old man come in, reeking of alcohol. What? I pay you good money and you give me a bunch of brats to protect me, I bet those three don't even know what they are doing. He slurred. He regretted it instantly when he had a short sword pointed at his jewels. Naruto just had a sweet smile on his face, making the males in the room shiver and a certain Nico asked Anbu to remember her genin days. Ara, correct me if I am wrong, but did you just try to say that just because we're young, that we cannot be shinobi? He asked in a sickly sweet voice. Sweating in fear, Tazuna replied. No. I did not say such a thing, and I promise not to say anything like that in the future. He replied fearfully. Naruto nodded before sheathing his ninjato. Anyways, Team 7, you're dismissed, but Kakashi and Naruto, please stay behind for a moment. The Hokage said. Sasuke and Sakura left at that. What is it that you need, Hokage-sama? Kakashi asked curiously. Naruto was wondering as well. I have received some information that the bridge builder has made an enemy of Gato shipping, and that Gato was seen recently speaking with Zabuza, the demon of the mist. He said, making Kakashi narrow his eyes. So the client lied about the level of the mission. Then why send a rookie genin Team Hokage-sama? Kakashi asked confused. Because we are using this opportunity. I will have a small squad of Anbu shadow you in case anything goes wrong, but I am assigning Naruto 2 supplemental missions. The first is a B-ranked assassination mission to assassinate Gato. I know of Naruto's skill level myself, so I know he can accomplish this. The other is a A-rank diplomat mission. If he can, I would like him to ally with Zabuza and convince him to join the Mist Rebels and send a message to them from Konoha. Team 7's main mission will be up to A-rank upon return if you actually encounter Zabuza. Do not inform Sasuke or Sakura of the mission's true details, as I want to see how they handle a situation in which intel is wrong. Hiruzen told the two. Kakashi was shocked that the Hokage was trusting Naruto enough to assassinate someone. He was the same age as him when he had his first assassination mission though, so he did not go against it, plus he knew he was stronger than he was letting on, so he assumed the Hokage knew his true strength. He was a little hesitant about the diplomat mission, but he will help him if he can. He was glad the Anbu would shadow them if things got out of hand though. Naruto on the other hand was laughing on the inside at the devious move the Hokage made to let him change things this time around. I accept, Hokage-sama. He said, smiling, to which he nodded and passed him a scroll. Give that to Zabuza if you manage to convince him. Destroy it if you can't. Good luck. He told them. They nodded and shunshined away. Kakashi met Sasuke and Sakura outside and told them to meet at the gate tomorrow at 9 and to pack for 3 weeks. They nodded and left. The next day at 9. Sasuke came up to the gate with a small pack and spotted Sakura with a pack way too big, and he sighed. He looked over and saw that Naruto didn't have anything visible, although he noticed he now had black gloves on his hands. He guessed he probably had whatever he was bringing sealed away somewhere. It was then that Kakashi came to the gates, with their client walking behind him looking sober. Hey there, my cute little genin. Before we leave, I need to see if you pack the right things. He said after he eyed Sakura's big bag. He then walked over to Sasuke and noticed he had the proper pack complete with a tent and sleeping bag. He then walked over and corrected Sakura's bag, removing the makeup and the too large amount of clothes, telling her to take it back home, to which she complained but left after receiving a glare. He looked over to Naruto and raised an eyebrow. Sealed everything away? He asked and he nodded smiling. I see, good idea. Would you mind sealing mine and Sasuke's things on us then and Sakura's when she gets here so we can move faster? He asked and Naruto nodded before he unsealed a brush and ink from his left arm and walked up to Kakashi. Roll up your sleeve please, Kakashi-sensei. He said and he did so. He quickly wrote a storage seal on his arm. All done, just add chakra and you can seal away your stuff and add more chakra to take it out. He told him before doing the same with Sasuke. Sakura came back 30 minutes later and Naruto sealed away her stuff as well and she giggled when the brush tickled her skin. Team 7 then set out for their first C-rank mission, which was secretly an A-rank mission. Since the client was sober, Kakashi decided to grab him so they could move at a shinobi's pace. Which meant it would only take 4 hours to reach Wave Country. 2 hours into their trip, Naruto found the puddle he knew the demon brothers were in. He used Anbu hand signs with Kakashi to not alert suspicion with their teammates. "To shinobi in that puddle Chunin level, I can handle them easily if we just walk past it normally," he signed to him. He nodded and told the team that he needed some rest, so they were going to walk for a little bit. Kakashi kept a close eye on Naruto, wondering what he was going to do. When they neared the puddle he noticed Sasuke tense, so he must have suspected something suspicious about it. He watched as Naruto weaved hand signs at an insane speed just as he stepped on the puddle. Oil style. Melting apparition. He called, confusing their client and Sakura while making Sasuke tense even more. Naruto breathed out a mist straight into the puddle. All of a sudden, they heard screams as two men jumped out of the puddle, their bodies burning as their skin sizzled. "You asshole, what did you do to us?" Gozu cried as he rolled on the ground, trying to stop the burning, the same as his brother Mizu. Naruto just walked over to them and tapped them on the head, causing black lines to spread over their bodies. Their bodies then locked up and they couldn't move anymore. My boil style is like acidic air, and once it came into contact with your skin, it ate away at it. Kakashi-sensei, what should we do with them? This was supposed to be a C-rank mission, and these two are the demon brothers of the mist. They are Chunin. Naruto asked innocently, making Kakashi smirk behind his mask at his acting. Tazuna-san, is there something we should know about? Kakashi asked, leaking a little killing intent. Tazuna broke down instantly, telling them how his bridge would end the monopoly of a man named Gato and that he didn't know he hired ninja to come after him. He then sobbed on how it was okay and that they could leave him as he would only be missed by his grandson and that his daughter would hate Konoha for the rest of her life, trying to lay on the guilt trip. At that point Kakashi just sighed and held up his hand. Tazuna, we will continue this mission, but we will have to renegotiate your contract with us as the mission rank has gone up to B rank with those Chunin and the fact that we may be attacked by another ninja along the way. Those two are known acquaintances of Zabuza, the demon of the mist, one of the 7 ninja swordsmen. If we encounter him, the mission rises to A rank. We will renegotiate the terms and payment if it does happen, and once your bridge is complete you can afford it. Kakashi told the sweating man, who nodded his head furiously. Kakashi then turned to his genin team. Team, normally genin would not be allowed to continue this mission and we would leave for false intel or request backup. You are lucky you have me with you, so we can continue this mission. This is officially a B rank now, so treat it as such as there could be other enemy shinobi encountered on this mission. He ordered them as they continued on. Sakura was shivering a little, while Sasuke was shaking in excitement. The hidden Anbu though were impressed with Naruto's skill, fast acting, knowledge of Anbu hand signs, and were curious as to how he used a paralysis seal so fast. Once they continued their mission, Sakura asked Naruto something she was confused on. Naruto, how did you seal away those guys just by tapping them on the head? I know Fuinjutsu requires ink, right? She asked, confused about that. The hidden Anbu, Kakashi, and Sasuke all perked up at this as they were curious about that as well. Naruto just laughed and directed their attention to his hands. Ah, that would be because of these babies. He said, showing his black gloves. My mother was a known seal mistress and she always wanted a way to be able to use sealing jutsu faster. So she designed these, but sadly she didn't get to finish them before her death. Since I want to follow in her footsteps, I finished them for her. He said proudly. So what are they? Sasuke asked, he himself curious about them now. They are made from seals, my blood, and ink actually. There are many seals inscribed into the fingertips that allow me to weave hand signs of sealing jutsu and use them without ink since it comes from the gloves. There is another seal on it to harden it so they don't just drip off my skin, and one final seal that stores away a massive amount of ink in a storage seal that draws on the ink to keep the gloves formed. Genius, aren't they? They are literally a seal master's best weapon. When I take them off, they are in a stasis seal so they don't use the ink from the storage space accidentally. He told the shocked ninja at the repercussions of the gloves. The only problem is it takes a year just to make one set, so it would be for only someone dedicated to the sealing arts that I would make another pair for. Maybe Jiraiya, but I don't know, he is a pervert. That set them off of the gloves, even if they were a magnificent weapon for a seal master. They sweat dropped at the part about Jiraiya though. They couldn't say anything either because it was true, although Sasuke and Sakura didn't know the name. With that, they continued their trip to Wave. 2 hours later, when they were near Wave, Sasuke launched a kunai into a bush, letting Naruto know it was time for round 2. Sasuke-kun, that was just a bunny. Sakura said to Sasuke. Naruto shook his head. No, Sakura, that was used for substitution, there is a shinobi nearby. He warned her. Everybody tensed at that. Get down. Kakashi yelled out as he tackled the client while Sasuke tackled Sakura to the ground. Naruto heard the telltale whooshing sound and knew the damage it would cause if it stayed in his hands, so he decided to take an early advantage in the fight. He unsheathed his ninjato and turned to face the sword flying at him. It struck his sword, but that was what he wanted as he was going to change its direction with the momentum. He put his palm on the blade and redirected it into the lake. Nobody knowing he just marked it with a seal. The sword flew into the lake and landed with a huge splash. Everyone heard an annoyed sigh and turned to see a man standing on a tree branch. He had no shirt on and wore camouflage pants while bandages were wrapped around his mouth and his headband was on sideways with a slash mark through it. He had camouflaged arm guards as well. Boy, why did you have to direct it into the lake? Sigh, this is going to be annoying now. The man said. Then he stopped and looked at Naruto closer with narrow eyes. Boy, you look like a leaf ninja I once knew. Who was your mother? He asked seriously. Wow, I knew my mom faced all of the 7 ninja swordsmen during her career, but I didn't know she left such a lasting impression that you could recognize even her son. Naruto said smiling, while Zabuza became even more serious at hearing that. So you're the son of the Red Death of Konoha, eh? Heh, this might be fun then. He said, jumping down and landing on the lake across from Naruto as his team appeared around him. Oh no. You leaf ninja, stay out of this. I want to test the boy out and see if he is as scary as his mother was. I will even sweeten the deal. You impress me enough and I will leave the bridge builder alone. It is far better to face someone like the Red Death in combat. Zabuza told the ninja. When Kakashi was about to retort, Naruto placed a hand on his shoulder. It's okay, Kakashi-sensei, I will face him. Besides, this is a good chance to complete the other missions. He added under his breath so only he would hear. Kakashi nodded and Naruto walked out onto the lake. He raised his ninjato in front of him in a reverse hold and prepared himself. Zabuza had already retrieved his blade during their talk. I am Naruto Uzumaki and I accept your challenge, Zabuza of the Mist. He said seriously. Zabuza put his blade over his shoulder and raised his hand in a come-on gesture, and with that they clashed. Disclaimer. I do not own Naruto. If I did he would be as cool as his son. Lake near Wave Country. Flashes of metal could be heard as 2 people were locked into a sword fight. This was only sound that could be heard for the last 2 minutes. Another clash happened before one of them spoke. Hey, you're almost as good as your mother was with a sword. Considering you're just a genin, that's scary. Zabuza complimented as he sported a few slash marks on his body that were bleeding and one nasty cut across his torso from when he extended the reach of his ninjato with wind chakra. Thanks, but I still have a ways to go before I surpass her. Naruto said back as he too was cut up and sporting various slash marks. Zabuza smirked beneath his bandages. Well, how about we get a little more serious? He said as he raised his hands prepared to start using hand signs. Naruto just smirked and did the same. They both blurred through hand signs and called out their jutsu. Water style. Water dragon jutsu. Zabuza called out sending a huge dragon made of water at Naruto while he called out his jutsu. Earth style. Mud wall jutsu. He called out as he spit out mud raising a wall to block the dragon and then he leaped over it going through more hand signs. He put his hand under his mouth as if to direct something and called out his next jutsu. Fire style. Grand fireball jutsu. He called out and blew out a huge blue ball of fire at Zabuza, who went through hand signs himself not seeing Naruto's smirk. Water style. Water wall jutsu. Zabuza called out just in time as the fireball impacted with the wall to create steam. Zabuza just heard the sound of another jutsu being called and cursed at the distraction. Water style. Wild water wave jutsu. Naruto called out and a huge wave rose behind him and went crashing in Zabuza's direction. They all heard a grunt of pain and waited for the steam from earlier to clear. When it was Naruto chat as she seen Zabuza still standing. Although he looked battered as hell and was breathing heavily. Boy, no Naruto, you are just as terrifying as your mother. If I hadn't raised another water wall in time I might have died from that. He said as he hefted his sword and got ready again. Naruto narrowed her eyes as she just wanted to finish this already, so he held out his hand and chakra gathered into it. Everyone widened their eyes at the blue ball of energy in his hands. I mean, how did he? Kakashi stumbled out wide-eyed. You just keep getting scarier, Naruto. The Rasengan now too. But that's a close-range jutsu, how do you plan to hit me with that? He asked. His eyes widened as he was hit in the back with the ball and sent flying into a tree to which he smashed against as he coughed up blood. Like that. Naruto called out to him standing where he just hit him. This time the hidden Anbu almost gave away their position from the gasp of shock at what he just did. Kakashi was frozen in place with wide eyes as he was able to see it just like the Anbu. Naruto disappeared in a yellow flash when he hit Zabuza in the back with the Rasengan. I see, can't believe you know that as well, you scary kid, cough cough, when did you mark me? Zabuza asked as he was laying against a tree breathing hard. When I redirected your sword into the lake I had my hand on it, that's when I marked you, or your sword that is. He told him. He began walking towards him only for a masked nin to land next to him and disappear a second later, although Naruto knew where they were going, so he made a shadow clone and used Anbu hand signs to the still shocked Kakashi. Going after target, ask the shadow clone any questions you need before he disappeared in a swirl of leaves. The shadow clone walked over to his shocked team at that. Naruto, how do you know those 2 jutsu? Kakashi said, the first to break the silence. Naruto med before he answered. Well, the Rasengan was taught to me by Jiraiya and the Hiraishin I got when I stumbled upon the notes for it in Jiraiya's sealing scrolls. He was trying to recreate but found he couldn't and let me have a crack at it. I figured it out pretty easily, but that's just because Uzumakis are natural Fuinjutsu users. Naruto answered. What are those two jutsu, Kakashi-sensei? I couldn't even see Naruto's speed at the last part. Sakura asked while Sasuke listened in. Those were the two jutsu that made the fourth Hokage famous. I can't even begin how to tell you how inappropriate it was for Jiraiya to allow Naruto to try them, as they are both dangerous if used wrongly, and it's dangerous to train to use them. Kakashi began shocking Sasuke and Sakura. The Rasengan is the pinnacle of shape manipulation and is pure chakra that rotates violently and explodes when it hits someone. The second jutsu is even more dangerous and only someone close to being a seal master can even use it, much less understand it. The Hiraishin is the jutsu the fourth Hokage got his moniker from, the yellow flash. It marks a person or object with a seal formula, allowing the user to teleport to that place instantly. It was thought that it died with Yondaime-sama, but it seems Naruto here can now use it. He explained to his odd students. Sasuke just smirked that his rival was so strong. Oh yes, he declared him his rival about a week into their formation, as he was the only person on his level, although now that he knows that he is way above him, he wants to train to get even stronger than him, and when he is when he will finally face him. Sakura was beginning to look up to Naruto for his strength, as he proved that he's stronger than Sasuke. She had vowed to get strong enough so that she could stand beside her teammates. Alright, let's get Tazuna-san home so that he can finish his bridge and we can finish this mission. Kakashi said to them as they started walking him home. But the real Naruto as soon as he left. Naruto was leaping through the trees towards where he knew Zabuza's base was last time. He had concealed his chakra so that he didn't alert Haku before he arrived. He remembered Haku saying Geto complained to them last time the first time Zabuza lost, so he was using this opportunity to strike and complete both missions at the same time. He knew half the Anbu left with him but were still shadowing him even if he knew they were there. Landing on a tree he spotted Zabuza's treehouse-like base. He sat there to wait for Geto, and he would follow him after he left Zabuza to his base and then execute the mission. As he needed to be in his base to use another resource for the diplomat mission. 1 hour later he spotted the fat midget with his 2 samurai guards walking into the clearing, heading for the treehouse-like base. He narrowed his eyes in disgust at the sight of him. He watched as he sauntered into the building. With Geto. He had just walked into the base and seen Zabuza all bandaged up while laying down in the couch. He smirked. Well, what do we have here? Got beaten by a bunch of little kids, Zabuza? He said mockingly. Zabuza growled and leveled his blade at them. Making Geto sweat. Shut up. They have the son of the Red Death on that squad as well as Kakashi of the Sharingan. There was no way I was going to beat them by myself. Next time Haku is joining in and we will complete the contract, you better make sure you're ready to pay or you're dead. Zabuza growled at them, making them hurry away in fear. Zabuza spat in disgust at them. Why did you say that, Zabuza-sama? Even with me there it will be incredibly hard and lucky to beat them. Haku said in confusion as he continued to heal Zabuza. Because I lied. I have no intention of going against somebody who is even more terrifying than the Red Death. Once my wounds are healed in a week we're going back home to the mist and joining the rebellion. This was supposed to be our last job before doing so I could support the rebels with the money from this job. I have heard Mei is pushing Yagura back so we're joining her. He told the shocked Haku seriously. I see. Yes, that guy was truly terrifying and at such a young age. Haku muttered. Well, it is said that Konoha produces the most geniuses. Zabuza said. What he did not know though was that he would meet Naruto again only under better terms. But Naruto. He had just seen Geto walk out of the base and scurry away with his bodyguards, so he decided it was time to act. With one hand sign he muttered henge under his breath and all of his clothes turned black along with his hair. He then concealed his presence further and leaped away to follow Geto with the 2 Anbu shadowing him. What Naruto did not know though was that the Anbu, despite their mission to shadow him, also had another mission to evaluate his abilities, and so far he was surpassing all expectations. Naruto shadowed Geto for 30 minutes before he made it to his base, which was really the daimyo's palace of Wave. He scowled at the man's audacity to use a daimyo's palace as his base. Once he seen him walk inside with his 2 samurai guards he went to work. The outside was guarded by about 100 guards all looking around haphazardly. He weaved through hand signs and called out one of his Fujin jutsu as he was not that interested in the art. Jinjutsu. Temple of Nirvana, he said quietly. Instantly white feathers dropped from the sky over the guards, making them all pass out at the wide-scale Jinjutsu. Even the Anbu following him had to use overpowered kais to break it, thus impressing them further. Once they were all asleep, Naruto leaped out and landed on the roof of the palace. He then used the Kyuubi's negative emotions, sensing to locate Geto on the 3rd floor in an office, while his 2 samurai guards stood outside of the door. He let go of the small amount of the Kyuubi chakra and walked to a window in the third-floor corridor. He opened it and silently stepped inside before closing the window just as quietly. He created a shadow clone without the smoke or hand sign, and both walked to the ceiling, using their short stature to their advantage as they silently positioned themselves above the two samurai. As one they unsheathed their tanto before plunging them through their necks whilst grabbing their mouths to prevent any sound from being made. They carefully laid their bodies down and set it up to where each other's swords were plunged through their necks for a setup he had planned. He and his shadow clone then hinged into the samurai's forms. Walking up to the door they walked in. "Hey boss, you gotta see this. This guy found a huge stack of ryo on this guy outside." One of the samurai said in his smug voice whilst pointing at the other one. In the office sitting in a chair behind a desk, Gato snarled. "What? Did someone think they could rob me?" he yelled whilst getting up. "Yeah, a real idiot, we got him tied up outside." The samurai said in his same tone of voice. Gato smirked at that and walked over to the samurai, and as soon as he passed him he found his head removed from his body. Naruto unhinged at that. He stabbed the body multiple times to make it look sloppy as his clone sealed the head in a scroll. He then got out a rock he got from outside and used his special hinge to make it a solid copy of Gato's head and put it next to his body and rolled it a bit to make it look like it rolled off naturally if it was cut off. He and his clone then dragged the two dead samurai and positioned them in front of the huge safe in the room and made it look like they killed Gato and then killed each other over who got the money. With that done he walked over to the safe and pondered what to do. He couldn't damage it because his cover story wouldn't work then. He summoned a shadow clone and had it rummage through the desk to look for a code before face palming and remembering he had magnet release. Walking over to the safe he used his magnet style to maneuver the locks inside until he heard a click. The safe opened to reveal a massive amount of ryo. He sealed it all in 2 scrolls before sealing the scrolls on himself. He then closed the safe and used his magnet style again to move the locks inside to lock it. His shadow clone had found the slip of paper with the code and he burned it to make it to where nobody could open the safe without struggle. With his mission done he got up and left the building the same way he got in. Once he was a good distance away from the building did he allow his hinge to drop and the orange part of his clothes and blonde hair to return. The Anbu at this point were salivating to get him into their ranks. This guy was genius, not only did he expertly perform the assassination silently and efficiently, he left behind evidence to make it look like he was killed by his own men for the money. Oh yes, they wanted him badly. Naruto pondered whether or not he should wait until tomorrow to confront Zabuza, but he figured now was better and to get it over with tonight. With that he leaped into the direction of Zabuza's base and arrived at it in 5 minutes. He still had his chakra concealed as he didn't want to startle them more than he already would. He sensed their chakra in the tallest part on the left side, so he just walked up to that part. Arriving at the window he peeked in to see Zabuza covered in bandages on a couch with Haku hovering over him, using whatever medical treatment he could, while Zabuza grumbled at him. Deciding to get the hardest part of the mission over with he knocked on the window frame, making the two snap their heads in his direction and tense at the sight of him. Raising his hand in surrender he smiled at them. "Haha, no need to be so tense, I come in peace," he said. Haku got out his senbon and prepared to attack before Zabuza put a hand on him to stop him. "Oh, and how can we trust you?" he said. At that he brought out 2 scrolls. "Because I have proof your employer Gato was going to betray you and that I helped you out," he said as he tossed Haku one of the scrolls as Naruto just sat at the window frame nonchalantly. Haku caught the scroll and read the inside, raising his eyebrows. "Zabuza-sama, this is Gato's handwriting saying he wasn't going to pay us at all and that he had a contract with Kiri's hunter Nin to send your body to them if he managed to kill you," he said, gasping, making Zabuza's eyes narrow in anger. "Okay Naruto, thank you for the proof, but how are you helping us?" he asked. At that Naruto unrolled the other scroll he had and unsealed it, showing Gato's head to them. "DCH, that was fast. You're seriously scarier than your mother. While I appreciate that he is dead, I don't see that helping us in any way, as I could have done it myself," he said as Naruto sealed the head away again before sealing the scroll away. He then unsealed another scroll and tossed it to Haku. Haku caught it and unsealed stacks upon stacks of ryo, making her and Zabuza eyes wide. "That is surely more than he was going to pay you, so consider your contract to kill the bridge builder done. Now I have to ask, what are your plans now?" he asked, using subtle manipulation to guide the talk into the area he needed it to go. "We are going back to Kiri when I am healed up and joining the rebellion," Zabuza said, eyeing him warily, wondering why he wanted to know that. "In that case, could you deliver a message for me to the leader of the rebellion?" he said, unsealing another scroll, tossing it straight to Zabuza this time, who caught it and read it. "I am unsure of what the contents of that scroll are other than Hokage-sama himself wrote it and that we support the rebellion," Naruto said, raising an eyebrow at Zabuza's smirk. It's just as you said, it states that Konoha is going back the rebellion and it has information that a spy for Konoha has on Yagura and his forces. With this we can definitely win. He said, not mentioning how much information or what information it had. It is also a formal request to ally our villages should the rebels win. Boy, you can be manipulative, you know that. You never intended to kill me in the first place, and I bet you already knew I was going to be here. This was a diplomatic mission for you, wasn't it? He said, smirking at the smiling boy. Who knows? I only follow Hokage-sama's orders. Well, if that's all, I can leave now. Naruto said, turning to leave before Zabuza told him one final thing. Boy, I am going to do you a favor, so don't be surprised when your fame will precede you when your enemies meet you on the battlefield. He said, mysteriously, making Naruto raise an eyebrow before he shrugged and jumped away. Haku sighed in relief at that. That guy terrified him. Naruto sighed in relief when he arrived at Tizuna's house and went to the room his shadow clone was in before it popped, and he received memories of his team arriving and everything going the same as last time, all the up to Inari saying they are going to die before walking away. He laid down in his futon and was out like a light. The next morning, Naruto awoke to the sound of a bunch of voices cheering outside the house. He groggily got up and went downstairs to see what was going on. Downstairs he spotted his team sitting at the table by themselves. What's going on? He asked them. The people of Wave are partying as the news of the death Gato by his own men who wanted the money themselves hit the town this morning. Now that they are free, they are partying. Kakashi informed him with an eye smile as he sat down. Oh, that's good for them then, Naruto said. He noticed the meaningful look he received from Kakashi and Hans signed he would tell him later. Yep, now all we need to do is wait for the bridge to finish and this mission will be a success. Team 7's first air rank mission and we completed it without injury. Kakashi I smiled at them. Sasuke smirked at this while Sakura smiled. Since we have free time, Sakura, you should go and train in your first step of earth manipulation. You too, Sasuke, with lightning. Naruto, you stay here so we can discuss what you should work on now. Sasuke and Sakura nodded before leaving the house to train. Alright, now that we are alone, how did the mission go? Kakashi asked. Both of them was a success. I have Gato's head sealed in a scroll and made it look like he was killed by his own men over greed. Zabuza has agreed to join the rebellion and deliver the scroll for Hokage-sama. He said to him. I see, that's good. I am surprised you were able to complete both missions in the same night. I suspected Zabuza would have taken longer. Kakashi said to him. He was already planning to leave and join the rebellion and I just used the situation to my advantage. He informed him. He nodded at that. I see, well, we should go and train too, then might as well use this time wisely. Kakashi said to him and he nodded. 1 week later. The bridge was finished much faster due to renewed vigor, more workers and Naruto's shadow clones. So here they were to see Tizuna off. I will never forget how much the Leaf Village helped us. I hope a scroll containing the new issue of payment will please your Hokage. Thank you, Team 7. Tizuna said to them, smiling and bowing. Mama, I am sure everything will be fine. Thank you for choosing Konoha. We will see you later. Kakashi waved them off as he and his team left back to the Leaf Village at a ninja pace, now that they did not have a civilian. Once they were gone, someone asked what they were going to call the bridge. Hope Bridge, to signify new hope that Wave will be led to brighter times. He said and they all nodded. 4 hours later they arrived back at the Leaf Village. Walking towards the Hokage's tower, the team noticed the looks of respect and admiration being sent to Naruto as they walked through. Admiration from civilians and respect from the shinobi. This confused them when they looked to him and he shrugged. They would get their answer though when they reached the Hokage's office. When they walked in, they noticed that when he looked at them he smiled, but when he looked at Naruto, he had an amused smirk on his face. This made Naruto narrow his eyes in suspicion. Team 7, good to see you back. Report. The Hokage said. At that, Kakashi saluted along with his team. Mission was a success, but there were complications. The client lied about the difficulty of the mission, and it turned out he had missing Nin after him. We first encountered the Demon Brothers of the Mist and made quick work of them. At that point we questioned the client and he said that Gato had hired missing Nin to get him, and not wanting Konoha to look bad, I said for us to continue the mission. Right before we arrived at Wave we encountered Zabuza Mamachi, the Demon of the Mist. Once again he was defeated and escaped via an accomplice. The next day Gato was reported dead from his own men and nothing interesting happened after that as Zabuza never reappeared. Kakashi reported. In light of this I will up the rank of the mission to A rank. You will pay it accordingly and have it added onto your records. The Hokage informed them. Team 7 dismissed. Naruto and Kakashi stay behind please. Sasuke and Sakura shrugged before they walked out. What of the other missions, Naruto-kun? Hiruzen asked him directly. At this Naruto gave him the scroll with Gato's head. Both were a success, Hokage-sama. I assassinated Gato the first night and left evidence behind to make it look like his own men did it whilst leaving no evidence of myself. The diplomat mission was easy as well. Zabuza was already planning to join the rebellion. After paying him what Gato planned to with interest, which was to be used for the rebellion's efforts, I convinced him to give the scroll to the leader, and you should expect a response soon. He reported. He nodded at that, proud at his skill. I see you will be paid for your extra A rank and B rank mission and have them added to your record. Good job, Naruto-kun. He said, smiling at him, to which Naruto beamed. Thanks, Gigi. Now do you know why everybody was staring at me when I walked into the village? Naruto asked in confusion. At that, Hiruzen's amused smirk came back into play. Yes, it seems you left a lasting impression on Zabuza. Here, look at this, page 159. He said to him, handing him a little black book, making Kakashi widen his eyes. That's, Kakashi stuttered out. The bingo book. Naruto finished for him as he opened the page Gigi told him to look for. Once he found it, he couldn't help but widen his eyes. On the page was a picture of him with some information on him. Bingo book, page 159. Name: Naruto Uzumaki, son of Kushina Uzumaki Konoha's Red Death. Age: 12. Rank: A+. Alias: Konoha's Yellow Death. Known natures: wind, earth, fire, water. Peke Genkai: boil release. Skills: ninjutsu: A+. Hijutsu: A. Genjutsu: Uncount. Genjutsu: S. Yuinjutsu: S. Defeated: Gozu and Maizu, demon brothers of Mist. B rank, ninja of Mist. Defeated: Zabuza Mamachi, demon of the Mist. A rank, ninja of Mist, member of 7 swordsmen. Approach with extreme caution. Well, at least he didn't mention the Hiraishin or the Rasengan. Naruto muttered, making Hiruzen choke on his own spit. Naruto, was it really necessary to use those 2 jutsu? Hiruzen asked with a sigh. I wanted to end the fight really fast. At least he didn't tell anybody. Naruto sheepishly rubbed the back of his head. Hiruzen rubbed his head. I am glad he did so. With your looks, it wouldn't take long for someone to connect the dots if you use those 2 jutsu. He sighed. Don't worry, Gigi, even if it comes out, I will be the light of Konoha. He said cheerfully, making Hiruzen confused as to what he meant before he elaborated. At this point, Kakashi connected the dots that he knew about his dad and just stared in shock. That way our other shinobi may work from the shadows for the betterment of the village. He finished, shocking him at how mature he was about something like that. See, well, I won't forbid you from using the jutsu, but please don't go flaunting it. Our relationship with Iwa is strained enough as it is. He told him, and he nodded. But now, Naruto-kun, please come back tomorrow as we have some other things to talk about. Team 7 is placed on leave for 1 week to rest. Dismissed. Saluting, Naruto and Kakashi left the office. Anbu, report. He said after they left, and instantly 4 Anbu appeared kneeling on the floor. Hi, Hokage-sama. The boy Naruto exceeded expectations. He easily handled the mission. He has a great knowledge of ninjutsu, good form for taijutsu, excellent kenjutsu, masterful knowledge of fuinjutsu, exceptional stealth skill, and a tactical mind. At the start of the mission, when he encountered the demon brothers, he sensed them from 1 mile out and told his Jonin sensei, who told him to keep it under wraps so they could see who their target was. Once they passed the puddle the brothers were hidden in with ninjutsu. Naruto used her boil release directly on the puddle, causing the brothers to leap out as they were being burned. Naruto explained that she underpowered it so they could be captured and interrogated. After finding out about the client's lie, they continued the mission far more cautiously. The demon brothers were released by us and told to join the rebellion, which they did so. 2 hours later they encountered Zabuza, and Naruto used his acknowledgement of his mother's skills to engage him in a one-on-one kenjutsu match, to where they were evenly matched by Naruto, using wind chakra to increase the reach of his sword. The Anbu squad leader started to explain before taking a breath and letting another member take over. They then elevated to ninjutsu, to where he used earth, water, and fire style and defeated him by finally using the Hiraishin from when he marked his sword and using the Rasengan on his back. He approached him, but he was saved by his accomplice. He made a shadow clone to accompany his team so that he could track Zabuza and his accomplice back to their base. He then waited for an hour outside of the base hidden before Gato showed up. A couple minutes later he was following Gato and his henchmen hidden to their base. Once it was located, he used henge to change his clothes and hair to black, and that's when his true genius started to come out. At this point Hiruzen could hear their awe as they spoke. He used a wide-scale genjutsu, the Temple of Nirvana technique, to put all the guards outside to sleep. Hiruzen was wide-eyed at the fact that she had enough chakra control to actually use genjutsu as a Jinchuriki and a Uzumaki. We even had trouble staying awake from the power and had to overpower Kai. He then leaped out onto the roof of the building and used his sensor abilities to locate Gato before silently going inside the building. He then perfectly assassinated his two main guards before making it look like they killed each other to our confusion at first before he hinged into them with his shadow clone and walked into Gato's office and convinced him to check something out before he removed Gato's head. The second Anbu said before he continued. He then made it look like his guards killed him and changed a rock into Gato's head with that physical henge he can use and made the guards look like they killed each other over the money in the safe. We are unsure of how he opened the safe without the code and locked it again, but he burned the code for it and left. After that it was easy for him to convince Abusa as he told you earlier. He finished. I see. Hiruzen said as he pondered on all of this. So what is your evaluation of him? He asked his Anbu. Honestly he shouldn't even be a genin, he is on par with Jonin and has the perfect skills to be an Anbu Hokage-sama. The squad leader said in all honesty. Well the Chunin exams are in a week so I will have him participate in them. He will be promoted either way, but this is a good way to make Konoha look good with him in the test. Alright you're dismissed Hiruzen said. The Anbu shined away at that. The Chunin exams Naruto said it was a major event and that's what he and I will be speaking of tomorrow. I wonder how things will differ from his timeline this time around. He mused while staring at the Hokage monument. Disclaimer. I don't own Naruto. If I owned Naruto, I would have him use his new Kekkei Genkai in the last two movies. The next morning Hokage's office. Alright Naruto, what do I need to know about the Chunin exams? Hiruzen asked him when he arrived that morning. Lots Jiji as it is the start of a lot of things that went wrong. Orochimaru assassinated the Kazekage and when the finals came around he attended in disguise as him and tricked Suna into invading us. He is also the leader of the new village called Odo and they joined Suna into invading us. We were successful in winning but it was not at great cost. During the second exam, he infiltrated the Forest of Death and marked Sasuke with a curse seal which leads Sasuke to defecting 6 months later to him. Also during the invasion you faced him alone and he used the Ito Tensei to revive the first two Hokage, which you then had to fight all three. The three combined were too strong for you, so you had to use the Reaper Death Seal to seal them away along with Orochimaru's arms. You died afterwards. Oh we also lost Gekko Hate when he tried to tail the spy Orochimaru has in Konoha. Naruto told him in his serious mode. Hiruzen looked like he had aged 10 years in that discussion after hearing all of the things his ex-student had done. I see. That's news is discerning. Okay first off who's the spy? Hiruzen asked wanting to nip that bud first. His name is Kabuto Yakushi, he works at the hospital and is pretending to be a genin. He will be in the Chunin exams but will forfeit before the third task. So have Jiraiya follow him instead. When he forfeits we cannot lose our sword master. Naruto said and Hiruzen agreed to his logic. The only other thing we should change really is you not fighting Orochimaru alone. He attacks during the third task in the middle of Sasuke and Gaara's match. I can handle him in the Forest of Death and prevent him from marking Sasuke this time. You should also use this opportunity to retire Jiji and choose a successor. Last time me and Jiraiya had to go and retrieved Tsunade for the position. Also since the council could make the decisions for promotions, only Shikamaru was promoted even if I made it to the finals and battled an unstable Jinchuriki. Naruto said to him before he cursed himself at Hiruzen's inquisitive look at why the council would prevent Naruto's promotion. Haha, I meant to not say anything about this, but the first time around you didn't keep me being a Jinchuriki secret, so I was hated in the village until I saved everyone from Nagato. Naruto said, laughing it off while feeling bad at Hiruzen's guilty look. It's okay though now Jiji, I am really happy in this timeline. Naruto said, smiling a bright smile. I see. Your capacity to love and forgive is truly incredible Naruto. Alright, I will make preparation, we won't be caught flat-footed this time around. Hiruzen said. Naruto nodded. They spent 2 more hours going over the more intricate parts of preventing the invasion from causing too much damage before they concluded their meeting. Kakashi should be giving you guys your papers tomorrow, so expect that. Hiruzen said as Naruto left. Naruto nodded as he closed the door. The next morning at Training Ground 7. Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura all just arrived at the training ground and seen Kakashi waiting on them. They were used to him no longer being late though because he was taking his team serious now. Alright team, I called you here today because I have something for you. Kakashi said as he took out 3 pieces of paper and handed them over to his students. The Chunin exams? Sakura asked. Correct, at the end of our break at the end of this week the Chunin exams will be taking place. I have nominated you 3 for them as I feel you're ready. He said with an eye smile. Naruto whooped for joy while Sasuke smirked. Sakura would have been intimidated if it weren't for the harsh training she had been going through lately to at least try to catch up with Naruto and Sasuke. Her earth style was going pretty well and she added Jinjutsu to her repertoire as well because of her chakra control. If she made Chunin she would have the opportunity to work in the hospital to become a med nin. Fill out your forms and turn them into the academy at the end of the week if you're participating. You're off for the rest of the week, good luck. With that he popped away in his usual fashion. "Yes, I will see you guys at the academy then," Naruto said with a smile. "DCHU, I can't let you surpass me," Sasuke said, smirking as he waved when he walked away. "I'll see you guys later. I am going to the library to see if I can find some more genjutsu," Sakura said as she left. Naruto nodded to them as he turned and left. He knew it was going to go different this time around, but he didn't expect the changes to already start happening. He already had the village's respect because of his moniker, and now he noticed that Sakura and Konohamaru didn't run into each other this time because he hadn't met him yet. He forgot to meet the kid this time. He wondered if he was going to run into the Sand siblings differently this time as well. Just then he heard a smack and a kid yelp while a guy sounded pissed. Guess even with changes some things will stay the same. Naruto mused as he turned down an alleyway to see Konohamaru being held up by his clothing by Kankuro like last time and with his sister behind him trying to stop it. He noticed one huge change that he was not expecting. Gaara was up in the tree like last time looking with emotionless eyes, except he looked different. He had long wavy red hair, a dainty looking face and soft looking skin. He was wearing a long red one-sleeved coat that showed the fishnet shirt he wore from the fact that his right shoulder was exposed. The red coat went down to his ankles but opened up in front of his waist, showing a grey miniskirt. He had red boots with black straps for shoes. His height was around his stomach. He still had his gourd strapped across his back. It was at this point that confirmed for Naruto that he was in a parallel dimension. Gaara was a girl here. Still he couldn't deny that she looked pretty. He decided to stop staring and confront Kankuro. "Excuse me, San-nin," Naruto called out, getting Kankuro and Temari to look at him. "Yeah, what do you want?" Kankuro said. "Well, you are allowed to be here because of the Chunin exams, it does not give you permission to assault the Hokage's grandson," Naruto said calmly with his hands in his pockets. Kankuro paled and instantly dropped Konohamaru, who was looking at Naruto in awe before he ran to hide behind him. "Kankuro, you idiot. We could have been disqualified immediately for that," Temari scolded. "Temari is right," a cold voice stated, making Temari and Kankuro freeze. "Gaara, what's up?" Kankuro nervously stuttered out. "You're an embarrassment of the village. Come on, let's go," Gaara said. Kankuro and Temari nodded and walked over to her before she turned to look at Naruto. "What's your name?" Gaara asked. "Naruto Uzumaki. What's yours?" Naruto said. He noticed the other to pale as they realized who they ran into, while Gaara smiled a vicious smile for a second before it was gone. "I am Gaara of the Sand. Mother wants your blood, I look forward to fighting you." With that she was gone while Temari and Kankuro walked away. Naruto flinched when he heard that and it caused him to remember something huge that he passed up, forgetting all about it. He jumped onto the rooftops and went home as fast as he could as he needed to get in his mindscape to resolve it. He arrived at his house and quickly went to his bed and sat in a meditative position before he found himself in his wide expanse of a mindscape. He pondered about changing it in the future for the bijuus, but right now he had a bigger problem. He spotted all the bijuu in a circle around him as they sensed his presence already. He looked up to them and spoke. "I can't believe I forgot about this, but what about the other bijuu that were in this dimension?" Naruto asked. "Oh, they're still there with their original host. This dimension just basically has twins now," Kurama explained. "What about you, Kurama? There is still only one of you with me," Naruto said, looking confused. "He was assimilated into me when we first got here. The same would go if you reabsorbed the rest of us, we would just assimilate into our older forms, even if it's just by 3 years," Kurama explained. "I see, so the Akatsuki will still be a major problem since they can still capture the bijuu," Naruto muttered as he sat down. "You don't have to worry about that for another 3 years, Naruto. Remember, they have to go by tails and will attack Gaara in 3 years," Matatabi said to him. "I guess so," Naruto said. "There is some good you can do now though, Naruto. Fu is here at the Chunin exams as well. She just went unnoticed because her team failed in the Forest of Death when her teammates were killed by giant spiders. Her village blamed her and outcast her. She stayed in the wild after that for 3 years, hating humans, and was easily captured by the Akatsuki because of it. So I advise you to help my previous host and convince Hiruzen to allow her into the village. You can say she would be targeted to the leader of Tokigaku and the sniveling man will easily let her go," Chimay stated. "I will help her the best I can then," Naruto proclaimed to Chimay. "But remember, from the war when she was reincarnated, she was the green-haired Jinchuriki. Find her and help her in the Forest of Death. To make it easier, you should allow her teammates to die again as they were horrible as well and bullied her," Chimay said. Naruto nodded. "Alright, before I leave, do you guys want me to allow you control so you can change things to your liking in here?" Naruto asked. "Oh, thank God, yes. All this wide is annoying," Matatabi complained. Naruto just nodded and allowed them free rein as he faded out. Once outside of his mindscape, Naruto decided to go to sleep. The academy 6 days later. Naruto arrived at the front of the building and found his teammates waiting on him. He nodded to them and the three walked inside, all three giving the Chunin attendant their forms outside before going in. Inside they spotted numerous teams about but they ignored them and went upstairs. Once they reached the next level they noticed to their confusion a bunch of teams arguing over trying to get in a classroom that said 301 on top of it. Only Naruto knew what was up at first. There's a Jinjutsu on the door. Let's ignore it and go up to the next level. It will weed out the idiots. Naruto whispered to his teammates who noticed the Jinjutsu as well. They nodded and followed him upstairs. They never noticed they were being watched by a genin in green spandex. That must be Sasuke Uchiha and the other one is Naruto Uzumaki. I cannot wait to challenge the both of them, the genin thought as he watched them walk up the stairs. He then decided that his team 2 should get going. But team 7. They had just reached the 3rd floor when they spotted their sensei waiting on them. "Sensei, what are you doing here?" Sakura asked when she spotted him. "Oh good, all 3 of you are here." I smiled. Seeing their confusion, well except Naruto who he was suspicious of getting extra information from the Hokage, he explained. "If all 3 of you hadn't shown you wouldn't have been able to advance. This is a team test and requires all member of your team," he told his shocked genin. "Well good luck to you 3. Kakashi said as he poofed away. "Let's do this team 7. Naruto said, putting his fist in the middle of them. Sakura cheered as she bumped his fist while Sasuke smirked and did so as well. With that they walked into the exam room. They immediately noticed all the glares being sent at them trying to intimidate them. Naruto and Sasuke just shrugged it off while Sakura was affected a little bit but joined her teammates in walking over to another area. "Naruto-kun." A flying purple bullet said as it latched itself onto Naruto. Naruto sweat dropped at this weird change in the timeline. So she is my fangirl now instead of Sasuke's, he thought. Ino's teammates Shikamaru and Choji walked over to join team 7 as well. "What a drag, you guys are doing this as well," sighed out Shikamaru. "Yahoo, you guys are here too," a loud obnoxious voice said. "Oh hey Kiba, so all the rookies are here then?" Naruto said, spotting him and his team joining them. "Yes, it is logical that our sensei are trying to give us some experience with these sort of tests more than us actually passing," Shino said, pushing up his glasses. "Yes, that does sound like something they would do," Shikamaru said, agreeing with him. "Whatever, me and my team will pass this easily," Kiba boasted. "You guys should keep it down," a voice interrupted them. They all turned and spotted a silver-haired genin that looked older than them and was wearing purple and white clothing. Naruto tensed, wanting to kill the man in front of him but held off on it as he had to wait for his chance. "Who are you?" Sakura asked suspiciously. The guy pushed up his glasses before he answered. "My name is Kabuto Yakushi and I guess you could call me your senpai in these tests," he said. "So you done this test before?" Sakura asked. "Yes, I have participated 7 times," he said. "Wow, you must suck." Kiba laughed. Kabuto's eyes twitched but he just smiled and answered. "Well, it's because of that I have these," he said as he pulled out a deck of cards. "What are those?" Shikamaru asked, curious. "These cards hold information on all of the genin I have encountered over the years of doing these tests. I even have information on all of you," Kabuto said. "Oh yay, prove it," Kiba said. "Okay, I will show you the info on the most famous of your group," he said, and Naruto tensed. Kabuto pulled out a card and poured some chakra in it. Naruto Uzumaki Kano has Yellow Death. So far he has completed 20 D rank missions and oh my 1 B rank mission and 2 A ranks. It says his specialties are ninjutsu, fuinjutsu, and kinjutsu," Kabuto said to a shocked room. Naruto's teammates looked at him with a raised eyebrow at the extra missions. He signed to them, "Will explain later." Naruto had started teaching the Manbu hand signs for more stealth on a mission that required silence. Meanwhile, the other rookies looked at Naruto with respect and jealousy in Kiba's place. "How could you know that? I have not competed in the exams beforehand and my mission stats should be confidential," Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow, goading him. Kabuto just smiled and laughed nervously. "Ahaha, I work in the archives for the village. I should regroup with my team now as I can see it's about to begin," Kabuto hurriedly explained before walking back to his teammates. When he left, Naruto scanned the room. He found Orochimaru looking at Sasuke hungrily and ignored him, looking elsewhere. He spotted the Sand siblings and seen Gaara eyeing him. He looked over the crowd of genin before he spotted a head of mint green hair. Finally spotting who he was looking for, he looked her over. She had short mint green hair and tanned skin. Awesome orange eyes and had a cheerful smile on her face, but he could tell it was fake as he used to look like that. He seen that she wore a white top that stopped below her bust and was sleeveless. She had a fishnet top under it that hung down further from her top. She wore wide arm sleeves on her arms that was not connected to her shirt. She had a white skirt with fishnet shorts showing underneath it. She had white ninja sandals as well. The most noticeable thing about her was the red canister strapped on her back. He knew it contained bugs she could control like because of her being Chime's Jinchuriki. He would keep an eye on her so he could save her like he promised Chime. While he was scouting out the competition he noticed their instructor came in more peacefully this time as Kabuto didn't have the chance to insult the Sound Village. Alright, shut up. I am the proctor of the first exam, Marino Ibiki. Now line up and take a number while I explain the first exam. He said. Naruto ignored the explanation of the rules as he already knew, but he did make sure to pick a different number this time to see where he would go. As luck would have it he ended up in between Fu and some Miss Genin, who looked intimidated to be sitting next to him. He did have a reputation in the mist right now so he wasn't surprised. Deciding to see what her personality was like, Naruto turned towards Fu with a smile. Good luck with the exam. He said to her. She smiled back. Thanks, and you too. She said, smiling brightly. When Ibiki said begin, Naruto decided to see how his information gathering skills were. He had a plan but couldn't do it until they were 20 minutes in. So he placed his hand on his cheek and looked like he was completely bored, to which he was. This caused Kakashi, who was in the Jonin Relam watching the test, to faceap him, while the other Jonin snickered. 20 minutes later Naruto released something from his hand, which were smoke bombs. They detonated, and when everyone was coughing in the smoke, Naruto copied the answers off of a fake Genin's test and sat back. The smoke was cleared by a gust of wind by an annoyed Ibiki who looked around the room for the person that did it. He spotted the Uzumaki kid looking bored, but he could see him smirking a bit. Smart kid. Cause a distraction and take the information while everybody is distracted. He thought, smirking. 10 minutes, Ibiki called out. The scribbling of a few papers got more frantic at that. Alright, now for the final question. You have a choice whether or not you want to take it. Ibiki said to the Genin. Why wouldn't we want to take the question? Tamari called out. Because. Began Ibiki, smirking. If any of you get it wrong your whole team is disqualified from ever participating in the Chunin exams ever again. He said, and this caused a caterwaul of protest. Shut up, you were just unfortunate to have me as a proctor. Now raise your hand if you don't want to take the question so that we may catalog what teams failed. He said with his arms crossed. At this several teams started quitting. Naruto just stayed there with a bored look on his face. Sakura, seeing her teammates look confident, didn't even think about raising her hand. Since Naruto didn't make an outburst this time, more teams quit not having the confidence. This left about 20 teams of Genin sitting there. Is that all of them? Ibiki questioned, looking stern. Seeing nobody else moving he nodded. Good, then you all pass. He said. What? Yelled most of the Genin. The world is not all sunshine and daisies, brats. This test was designed to test your information gathering skills. All over the room are Chunin disguised as Genin. We needed to see if you had the guts to be Chunin. Ibiki said, taking off his bandana, showing off his scars. At that moment a pair of kunai flashed into the room and stuck to the wall, unrolling a banner that read. The sexy and single Anko Mitarashi has arrived. The black ball came into the room, exploding into the form of Anko and her scantily dressed self. Alright brats, the second exam begins now. Anko said, eyeing all of them. Damn, only 20 teams left. Nice work, Ibiki. I'll cut them down by half though. She said, smirking. Follow me to your next location for the exams. She ordered and leaped out of the window. Naruto and his team were the first to follow her. Which led to all the other Genin teams following after them. Training ground 44. Alright brats, welcome to the Forest of Death. Anko said, dramatically gesturing to the huge forest that was behind her. This will become the location of the second exam. For this exam you will be receiving one of 2 scrolls that are marked as heaven and earth respectively. She said, taking out one of each scroll. Your objective is to obtain the pair to your scroll through any means necessary and then finding your way to the tower in the middle of the forest. I will be splitting them evenly, 10 earth scrolls to half of you and 10 heaven scrolls to the other half, forcing your numbers down by half no matter what. She continued to the wary Genin who were eyeing each other. That's not to say it will be 10 teams finishing, because this forest is dangerous and filled with countless poisonous plants and huge animals. Plus you will be in there for 5 days, which is the time limit for this exam. She explained to them. What will we do for food? Cried Choji. Anko rolled her eyes. You will be capturing it yourself and fending for yourself. She said, smirking. Can a team drop out after entering? Shikamaru asked. No, once you're in there you stay until the time limit ends. As such, all of you have to sign waivers since the Leaf Village is not responsible for your deaths. She said, taking out a stack of papers. By now a lot of the attending Genin were thoroughly intimidated. They all lined up in booths around the training grounds to sign their forms and receive their scrolls. Naruto's team received a heaven scroll and Naruto sealed it onto himself. They lined up in front of a gate ready to begin. Before it started, Naruto turned to his team. Okay, once we get in there I am going to send out clones to scout the other teams and possibly retrieve an Earth scroll. Naruto informed them and they nodded. Begin. Shouted Anko, sounding a buzzer and opening the gates. All the genin flew into the forest at that. Immediately after entering the forest, Naruto created 30 shadow clones, not taking any chances. He sent 5 of them into the direction he knew Fu's team was in to keep watch over her. After that he and his team headed north. 30 minutes later they stopped on a tree branch and spotted a team of Nin, looking like they were planning. Sakura was about to throw shuriken at them before Sasuke stopped her. Wait, those are Bunshin. The real ones are hiding in the bushes to the left. Sasuke whispered to her, pointing to where the real 3 were hiding while having his Sharingan activated. Sakura nodded and aimed towards it whilst Sasuke prepared a jutsu along with Naruto, both in sync of what they wanted to do. Sakura launched the shuriken into the bushes and the 3 Bunshins faded away as 3 genin emerged from the bushes, 2 of them with shuriken impaled into their legs while the other escaped them. The 2 impaled ones cursed while the 3 huddled up with their backs together looking for their ambusher. Fire style. Phoenix Flower Jutsu. Sasuke called out, sending 5 balls of fire straight to the genin who made themselves easier targets. Wind style. Great breakthrough. Naruto called out a second later, greatly empowering the fire, making them too large to dodge, and the 3 genin were engulfed in an explosion. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura dropped down with weapons drawn just in case. They needn't have bothered, as once the smoke was blown away by Naruto, it revealed the 3 genin unconscious as there was no need to kill them. Sakura searched them and found a heaven scroll to their disappointment. She asked them what they wanted to do with, and Sasuke and Naruto said to burn it to weed out the competition. She tossed it to Sasuke, who did so with a low-level Kaiten jutsu. But that they took to the trees again and continued on. 1 hour later Naruto sensed a huge gathering of chakra. Get down and hang on to the trees with your chakra. Naruto yelled as he did some hand signs when he felt it coming. Sasuke and Sakura dropped to hold onto the trees they were on when he said that. Wind style great breakthrough. Naruto called out, send a huge wave of wind at the same jutsu heading towards them. The one heading to them though was overpowered and blew through Naruto's hasty jutsu. It did stall it long enough for the 3 to have a good foothold to not be blown away. Once it was done the 3 genin stood up looking for who did that. Bukuku, that was a good reaction Naruto-kun. A chilling voice said right behind the 3. They whirled around, weapons drawn ready to fight. Disclaimer. I do not own Naruto. If I did he would have more than just the wind style. Bukuku, that was a good reaction Naruto-kun. A chilling voice said to them right behind them. The 3 whirled around, weapons drawn ready to fight. The sight that greeted them was a feminine-looking grass ninja. Orochimaru. Naruto said with distaste. Sakura and Sasuke looked at Naruto in surprise when he recognized the ninja. Oh, so you already know who I am, eh? Kukikuku. Orochimaru chuckled as he ripped off the face of the ninja he was wearing, as he had no need to hide if they knew him, to Team 7's disgust. It revealed a man with white skin and purple eye marking resembling fangs, along with yellow slit eyes. He had long dark hair as well. Yes, you're Orochimaru of the Sand and NS-classed missing nin of the Leaf Village. Naruto answered. Orochimaru just kept that smirk on his face as Naruto said all of this. Well then, since you already know of who I am, why don't we have some fun? If you can beat me I will give you this earth scroll I have. Orochimaru said, pulling out the scroll Team 7 needed. Sasuke and Sakura were intimidated at the knowledge of who they were up against and were wondering what they should do. Naruto just had his eyes narrowed as he stayed perfectly still. Orochimaru opened his mouth wide and was about to swallow the scroll before he felt a fist slam in his stomach, sending him flying into a tree. Coughing, he got up and looked to see Naruto sealing away the scroll he was about to swallow. How did he move so fast? I didn't even sense him. Orochimaru thought furiously. Then he noticed Naruto's eyes were different. They were gold with a bar as the pupil, and he had an orange pigmentation around his eyelids. Sage mode. How can one so young as him already have achieved such a thing? That still doesn't explain the speed he moved at either. Orochimaru thought. Fukuku, already a sage at your age, Naruto-kun? I guess I have to take you a bit more seriously then. Orochimaru said, chuckling as he regurgitated the Kusanagi. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he unsheathed his tanto. He coated the blade in wind chakra, knowing the abilities of the Kusanagi already. Sasuke, Sakura provide long-distance support, I will engage him directly. Naruto said before he charged forward to Orochimaru and they clashed their blades. They stalemated and leaped back. Naruto went through one-handed hand signs much to Orochimaru's surprise. Sage art. Lava style. Flowing magma. Naruto called out and he spit out a wave of lava at Orochimaru. Orochimaru flashed through hand signs and countered. Water style. Wild water shockwave. Orochimaru called out, spitting a huge wave of water at the magma to cool it. Seeing it wouldn't be enough, he raised a quick earth wall. Damn, he can even augment his jutsu with it. Orochimaru cursed in his head. Feeling killing intent behind him, he turned just in time to block Naruto's wind chakra-coated tanto. He however was not prepared for a Rasengan to be smashed into his stomach, sending him into a tree again. Falling from where he smashed, Orochimaru regurgitated another body from his own mouth using his own jutsu. I can only do that one more time before I would have barely any chakra left. That's brat's way stronger than a genin. Orochimaru mused as he got up and looked up just in time to see Naruto throwing a jutsu he had never seen before at him. It resembled a Rasengan, but it was white and shaped as a shuriken. It sounded like a bunch of blades screeching against each other. Orochimaru tried leaping away, but as it neared him, Naruto smirked. "Expand." Naruto called out, and it grew to a huge size and collided with Orochimaru. "Ah!" Orochimaru screamed as it sent him away whilst shredding his stomach at the contact point. It then exploded with him in it and felt like millions of microscopic blades were tearing him apart. "Wind style. Rasen Shuriken," Naruto said, seeing his original move detonating. When it was done, Orochimaru's body fell from the sky and landed on a tree branch. Out of its mouth came a hand, and then another body of Orochimaru emerged, though it looked weak and was breathing hard. "You brat, haha, do not think you have won here," Orochimaru said, panting. He bit his thumb, drawing blood, and went through hand signs. "Summoning jutsu," Orochimaru called, and a huge puff of smoke emerged before a white snake barreled out of it heading for Naruto, and Orochimaru turned toward Sasuke and elongated his neck and approached Sasuke at too fast a speed for him to react. Just as he was about to bite down on Sasuke's neck, he felt something impact with his stomach and send his body flying along with his elongated head. He looked down to see Naruto had his fist impacted in his stomach coated with nature chakra. Orochimaru spat out blood and he was sent flying through the forest and cursed Naruto. Once Orochimaru was gone, Naruto leaped back over to his odd teammates. "Come on guys, we need to head for the tower, I don't want to be here when he comes back," Naruto said to them, and they nodded and followed Naruto as he seemed to know where he was going. Sasuke and Sakura just couldn't believe their eyes. Their genin teammate just went toe-to-toe with a Sannin. They were beginning to realize that they knew nothing about him at all, as he did not attend the academy. Sasuke was determined to ask Naruto to help him train after what he just witnessed. If he could become as strong as Naruto, then he could finally kill his brother. It took them another 5 hours of tree hopping before they finally reached the tower in the middle of the forest. Once inside, they read a plaque that had a hidden meaning of telling them to open both of their scrolls at the same time. Smoke erupted from them before their academy instructor Iruka emerged. He then told them that he was proud of them for advancing that far and that the final exam would be at the end of the 5-day period of the second exam and that they could use the rooms in the tower they were in to rest up for it. The three then headed for their room, and once inside, Sasuke and Sakura crashed into their beds as Naruto laid on his. He then felt his shadow clone that was shadowing Fu's team dispel, and its memories caused him to blush. Flashback no jutsu. SC shadow clone, Naruto had finally located Fu's team to see the three of them setting up a campsite. Well, more like Fu was setting up a campsite as her two teammates were just lazily sitting and glaring at her. South Carolina Naruto was saddened at the sight of this, which was why he did not say anything when he noticed the plant vines that were creeping towards Fu's teammates. Fu heard her jerk teammate start screaming and whirled around just in time to see them getting eaten by a giant plant monster. "Nuo. The village will blame this as on me." Fu screamed in despair as she sliced any plant roots and vines near her with a water sword. Just then she noticed a huge blue ball of fire descend from the trees and collide with the plant monsters and burn them to ash. "Are you alright?" She heard and whirled around to see a boy with spiky blonde hair that had two bangs framing his face and cerulean blue eyes. He had a worried frown on his face and was dressed in an orange long-sleeved kimono top with a red spiral on the left bottom side and was held closed by a black obi. It was embroidered with black silk as well. He had black anbu pants with pockets and a shuriken holster on his left thigh and black shinobi sandals. Fu had actually blushed at the sight of the nice boy that sat next to her in the exams before she tensed, prepared to fight him, even if he was the famous genin being called the Yellow Death. Naruto held his hands up in surrender. "Are you okay? I got here just in time to see those plant monsters coming after you and I burned them," he said, telling her he was the one who had stopped the attack just now. Upon remembering her teammates' deaths, she collapsed on the ground crying because she knew the fate that would befall her when she returned the village with the deaths of her teammates. South Carolina Naruto quickly approached her and wrapped her up in a hug, and she tightly embraced him, crying. Hey, why are you crying?" Naruto asked, concerned. "Where are your teammates?" Naruto asked. Fu, despite the state she was in, scoffed. "I could care less about those two jerks. The reason I am like this is because when I turn up to my village with their dead bodies, I am likely to be banished. They already hate me enough as it is. All because I had a freaking bijuu sealed into me." She cried out before she froze and looked at Naruto with fearful eyes, thinking he would shun her too. Naruto just gave her a kind smile. Hey, don't worry, I won't fear you or shun you. In fact, I know you feel completely. If you can keep a secret, I will show you why. Naruto said, keeping his kind smile. Fu shyly nodded. Naruto smiled before he stood up and helped Fu up as well. He closed his eyes, and Fu felt an incredibly familiar type of chakra began to gather around him. When he opened his eyes, they were red with a slit for a pupil, and his whisker marks on his cheeks became blackened and more feral appealing, along with his canines growing slightly longer. She gasped as she recognized the changes. "You're a Jinchuriki too?" She asked, hopeful that she found someone like her. Naruto nodded. "Yes, I contain the Kyuubi," Naruto said as he allowed the changes to recede. He suddenly found himself engulfed in a hug and whilst flustered. "Well then, since your village seems to not want you anymore, why don't you join mine? I can take you in under clan protection and there is nothing anybody could do about it," Naruto questioned. Fu looked at him with teary joy-filled eyes before she kissed him on the cheek whilst shouting thank you over and over again. Naruto's face resembled a tomato at that as he held his cheek that had just been kissed. When Fu realized what she had done, she blushed scarlet as well and hid her face in her hands. Naruto chuckled a little at that. "Well then, allow me to introduce myself. I am Naruto Uzumaki," Naruto said with a flourished bow that made Fu chuckle. Deciding to return the gesture, she bowed as well. "I am Fu, no last name," she said, smiling. "Follow me, Fu-chan, then. We will sneak out of this forest and head to my house. I am just a shadow clone of Naruto as he is with his team doing this exam," Naruto said, holding out his hand. Confused Fu grabbed it. "How do you plan to sneak out? There are Lee Shinobi watching over the exam," she questioned, and Naruto flashed a foxy smirk. "Hold your breath," was all she heard before they flashed away. After she got over the shock of teleportation and Naruto dodging questions about it, he settled her in his home and told her the original will be there after the exam was over and popped. Flashback no Jutsu Kai. After receiving the memories of his clone, Naruto fell asleep, wondering if there were going to be changes in the preliminaries. Day of the prelims. Team 7 along with teams 8, 9, and 10 all had passed, making the whole of the rookie 12 be a part of the prelims. Along with them were another older Konoha Genin team, which was Kabuto's team, the Sand siblings team, and the Sound team had all made it. Although the Sound team were glaring murder at Sasuke for some reason. They were all lined up on the arena floor with the Hokage standing in front of them, along with their Jounin senseis and the Chunin exam proctor for this time, which was Hade. The Hokage them spoken to them. "I would like to begin by saying congratulations to all of you for passing the second exam. However, I have some bad news. There are too many of you who passed, and so we must hold a prelims to lower the number a bit, as the third exam will be a tournament in front of the 5 cages this time around along with the daimos, and with this many it would take too long," he said, earning some protest from the ones who had just made it that day, which included Team 8. "Yes, I know some of you may be tired, but you have to understand the reason we hold these exams publicly like this. It's a substitute for war. In times of peace like these, we villages compete against each other for clients with exams like these," he explained to them, getting them to understand. "Now the prelims will." He was interrupted by a cough as Hade stepped forward. "If I may, Hokage-sama," he said, and when Hiruzen nodded, Hade looked at the assembled genin. "Hello, I am Gekko Hade and proctor for this year's Chunin exams. We will be holding the preliminary right now. The board behind me will cycle through names and the two that show will face off against each other. It could be anybody that passed, including teammates," he told them. "Now please make your way to the stands above us and we will begin." All of the genin walked up the stairs, and once they did so the screen began flashing through names. After a couple of minutes it stopped. "The first match will be Naruto Uzumaki vs Aku Apumi," Hade announced the names shown. Naruto smirked at this change in the timeline, as it meant Orochimaru was watching him now if he interfered enough to get Naruto to face off a Sound ninja. It also meant he did not need to hold back. He leaped down onto the stadium and stood across from the boy with the windpipes in his arms. "I don't care if you're in the bingo book if I kill you here, and now I will be famous," Zaku declared arrogantly. Naruto raised an eyebrow at him. "If that's you think, then I will win in one move," Naruto said back, making Zaku furious. After seeing that they were ready, Hade called for them to begin. "Decapitation Airways," Zaku shouted, raising his arms and blasting concentrated blast of wind chakra at Naruto. The Naruto it hit though was just an afterimage as Naruto disappeared and reappeared behind Zaku in pure speed before hitting his lower back with a palm strike, sending him rolling across the arena as black lines crawled over his body from the sealing ink in Naruto's glove. Zaku cursed as he felt his body lock up on the ground from a paralysis jutsu. "Don't worry, it will wear off in about 30 seconds, I just needed time to do this," Naruto said as he sliced his wrist open with his tanto, greatly confusing everyone there as they watched his blood pool onto the ground. Naruto then flashed through hand signs before calling out. "Uzumaki secret art. Blood clone jutsu." he said, and the blood bubbled and rose before forming an identical clone of Naruto, only it was just a little weaker than him and far more alive and powerful than a shadow clone. Everyone there then realized why he cut himself open. Naruto then swung his blood-covered arm that was steaming as it healed and slung the blood on the floor around his blood clone. He then looked at the Hokage and Orochimaru in disguise as the sound teams jounin and smirked before flashing through 100 hand signs in seconds. Hiruzen and Orochimaru widened their eyes as they realized what he was doing. Summoning jutsu. Ito-tensei. He shouted as he slammed his hand on the floor, causing seals to appear under his clone and a coffin to rise out of the ground and swallow him. Zaku was also starting to get feeling back in his body as the seal wore off. Everyone there not in the know were curious as to what summoning technique required a sacrifice, while others had a bad feeling rise up in their chest as the coffin began to slowly creak open. There were several gasps of shock from the older jounin in the room, along with the Anbu and the Hokage, as well as Orochimaru, who widened his eyes in surprise as they recognized who stepped out of the coffin. It was a stunningly beautiful woman with long scarlet hair. She wore a short-sleeved pale yellow kimono top reminiscent of Naruto's. It was closed by a black obi. She had black short shorts on under the kimono top, making it seem like a skirt. She wore thigh-high black socks and black shinobi sandals. Her black sclera and cracked skin reminiscent of paper did nothing to detract from her beauty. This was the Red Death of Konoha Kushina Uzumaki. "Hey Kachan," Naruto said, grinning, further shocking the younger generations as this let them know who the woman was. The woman, it seemed, shook a little before what looked like clarity came to her eyes. She looked around the room she was in before looking to her left and smiling brightly. She ran over to Naruto and hugged him tightly, lifting him off the ground as she was pretty tall and Naruto was still slightly short. "Oh, look at my little Naru-chan all grown up," she cooed, making everyone in the room sweat drop as that kind of ruined the image they had set up of her thanks to Naruto. Naruto meanwhile had his face flush in extreme embarrassment. "Although Naruto, this jutsu you used, please tell me you didn't sacrifice anyone to summon me," she asked. Naruto however shook his head and grinned as they ignored everyone around them. "Nah, I used one of our clan's secret arts, the blood clone," he said, grinning as if he just broke the laws of ninjutsu. Which he sort of did. This caused Kushina to smile brightly at her son before her face turned serious as she set him down and looked at the person across from them who had risen onto his feet by now with the seal completely wearing off. "So why have you summoned me, Naru-chan?" she asked. At this Naruto turned serious as well and those watching sensed the change and watched intently, wondering how the match that should have ended already go. "You just gotta beat the genin. I just wanted to be lazy and not do it," he said sheepishly. His mom gained tick marks at this and looked at her son in anger. "Sachi. Laziness is unbecoming of a ninja. Honestly, you're just like your father was when it came to paperwork." She stopped talking when she seen Naruto's eyes widen and make a slash mark across his throat for her to be quiet. As if realizing where she was, Kushina sheepishly rubbed the back of her head, making the Hokage sigh in relief at the fact that the secret wasn't out yet. The others in the room now knew where Naruto got his tendencies from. "Well, since you're interrupting my time with my son, I am going to put you down, little boy," Kushina said with a red haze of aura around her as she glared coldly at Zaku, who was preparing to attack them while they were distracted. A certain purple-haired Anbu shivered as she watched her Genin sensei's aura of death, as she used to call and manifest once more in the world of the living. Of course she was still teary-eyed at seeing her again. She could see Anko, who was there as well, was tearing up, and she could see Kurenai doing it too. Golden chains manifested around her fist and she disappeared in a blur. She was a jounin after all, before decking Zaku in the face, knocking him out as he collided with the wall. The chains disappeared along with the aura of death around Kushina. She had returned to her happy self. Gekko Hate, seeing it was over, walked forward. "The match is over and Naruto Uzumaki wins," he said. This, it seemed, was what snapped everyone out of it as they started throwing questions at Naruto. "Hey Naruto, you mean to tell you can bring people back from the dead?" Kiba shouted after he eyed his mother with a bit of drool. "Yes and no, I guess. Yes, I can with this jutsu, but usually it requires human sacrifice, and so is a forbidden jutsu. The version I just used can only be used to bring someone of my bloodline back," Naruto replied as he ascended the stairs with his mom happily following him as she poked and prodded him all over since she hadn't seen him since he learned the jutsu and summoned her the first time when he was 11 using a bandit's corpse. She had immediately scolded him for it and he promised he wouldn't do it again unless he figured out how to do it without human sacrifice. She adored how cute her little Sachi looked. "Then how come you don't just bring all of your relatives back to life?" he asked. Naruto looked at him with sad knowing eyes as Kushina gained a sad smile. "Because the dead should stay dead and be in the afterlife with their loved ones. I only summoned Kachan just now because she never got to say her goodbyes and I finally had a way to do it safely." He replied, and all of the older ones and even some of the more mature ones of the younger generations nodded at his logic. I see, sorry man. Kiba apologized, realizing how hard it must be for Naruto to have the ability, but to know he shouldn't do it. Naruto waved off his concerns as he eyed the board that started to cycle through the names again. It's cool man. I got over it a long time ago. He said, and Kiba nodded as he let his eyes drift to the board as well. Kushina by now had stopped prodding her son and was now seen talking to Kurenai, Neko Yugao, and Anko. Are those the ones you wanted her to say goodbye to? Kiba asked him as they watched the match between Shikamaru and Kin. Yeah, they were her genin squad before she died in the Kyuubi attack. Naruto answered him. Wow, so your mom taught Kurenai-sensei? That's cool. Kiba said. They both then noticed how Ino had approached Naruto's mom and was talking to her, and her mom said something that caused her to blush and make the three other girls to giggle at her. They all then looked at Naruto, who raised an eyebrow before they started to converse in whispers. Naruto felt a chill go up his spine at this. Why do I feel dread when I see that? Naruto conspiratorially whispered with Kiba. Kiba grinned as he punched Naruto in the arm as they watched Shikamaru win with his usual lazy but impressive strategies. Dude, if I were you I would enjoy it. He laughed. Yeah, but my mom can be a pervert sometimes. When I first summoned her she went on and on about how I should rebuild my clan with multiple girls and that she wanted lots of grandbabies. I always thought you should be monogamous. Naruto complained as he and Kiba watched as that guy Dosu faced off with Shino. Kiba looked at him like he was stupid. Dude, I wish my mom was like yours. She sounds awesome. He whispered as they watched Shino plug his ears with bugs to cut off Dosu's melody arm technique before winning by draining him of chakra and poisoning him with poisonous beetles. Yeah, she is awesome. Naruto said, chuckling. They continued to talk as others went up and fought. They watched the catsuit-wearing Sand sibling win against one of the older Konoha genin and then watched his sister beat the cute panda-looking genin from Konoha. They then watched as Sasuke easily beat the other older Konoha genin with his fire ninjutsu. Their teammate Kabuto having forfeited at the beginning. Then there was an actually impressive match between Sakura and Ino, with Sakura winning by tricking Ino into trying to possess an earth clone before knocking Ino out with a rock-covered fist. Then a match that always pissed Naruto off to watch was Hinata vs. her cousin Neji, which actually went the same as last time, except it was Lee who shouted encouragement for her beating Naruto to it. Naruto remembered how Hinata said she grew up idolizing his determination to pull through, and he figured that with his absence this time, Lee must have filled that role. The next up was Kiba and Choji. It was a fierce match after Choji received encouragement through bribing with barbecue. It was also ironic since their best moves both caused them to spin at an insane speed. It ended with Choji losing due to him not having as much stamina as Kiba, who outlasted him in their spinning to jutsu moves contest. The last match was one Naruto was waiting on. He had no idea what kind of effect growing up as a girl had on Gaara and was wanting to see if anything would be different. He was right somewhat as she seemed more bloodthirsty than her male counterpart, but he could be wrong. If she was, he assumed it was a defense mechanism to protect herself from the darker aspects of shinobi life. It ended the same with Lee critically injured and Guy saving him from death by pushing aside Gaara's sand. Naruto may have wanted to change things, but even he knew when to stay out of it. This all led to Naruto, Kiba, Sakura, Sasuke, Neji, Shikamaru, Kankuro, Temari, Gaara, and Shino standing before the Hokage, Hayata, Anko, and Kushina, who hasn't had the chance to say her goodbyes to everyone she knew yet. Congratulations to all of you for making it to the third exam. As I said before, it is a tournament. You will be drawing numbers to determine the matches. Do so now. Here is and informed them. Anko came up with a box filled with strips of paper. All of the genin did so. Please read out your number now. Hayate said as he had a clipboard and pen ready to draw up the matches. 9. Naruto said. 1. Sasuke said. 2. Neji said. 6. Sakura cheered, happy that she made it to the finals. 4. Shino drawled out. 3. Kankuro lazily said. 7. Shikamaru sighed out. 8. Sniffed Temari. 10. Gaara said, grinning bloodthirstily. 5. Kiba said, grinning. Hayate wrote down their numbers before informing them of their matches. So the match order is Sasuke vs. Neji, Kankuro vs. Shino, Kiba vs. Sakura, Shikamaru vs. Temari, and Naruto vs. Gaara. Hayate informed them as the respective ninja eyed their opponents. There will be a month-long break to allow our dignitaries to arrive, as well as let you develop more skills besides the ones you showed off here today. I hope you all the best of luck. Hiruzen informed them before shunshining away. Kakashi and Kushina came up to Team 7 after everyone left as they were the ones who stayed. Congratulations to all of you for making the finals and being the only full team to make it. Kakashi said, smiling. This got a thanks from Naruto and a shy one from Sakura and a good-natured smirk from Sasuke. Now as for training for this month. Kushina here said she would like to introduce Sakura to someone she believed could help her over the month. Naruto, I have a gift for you that I think will greatly help you, and to tell you Jiraiya is in the village. Sasuke with me. Kakashi informed them, getting nods from the three. Kakashi grabbed Sasuke's shoulder and they disappeared in a swirl of leaves. This left Naruto, Sakura and his mom. Alright, first off, congrats Sachi, I am so proud of you. Also, since it seems you know Jiraiya, I want you to punch him in the nuts for me when you catch him peeking. She said, winking, causing Naruto to smirk and nod. Alright, good. Now before I depart back to the afterlife, I want to introduce you Sakura to someone I trained during their genin days who I believe can help you beat that Inuzuka. Naruto, I will see you at home later, alright? She said, looking at Naruto at the last part, who nodded with a smile before he too vanished in a swirl of leaves. Alright Sakura, me and you need to head to the Dango Sop, I believe that was where she said she was going after the exam. Kushina said, smiling. Sakura nodded with a smile and allowed Kushina to shunshun her away from the stadium. Disclaimer. I do not own Naruto, period. Naruto had shunshined back to his house after his mom and Kakashi had told him to meet with Jiraiya later at the hot springs. He appeared at his front door and brought out his keys to open his door. Once he did so, he walked inside. I'm back. He called out as he walked inside. He heard footsteps and looked up to see a sight that caused his face to ignite. "Ah, put on some clothes." He shouted as Fu walked in, clad only in a towel, as it was evident she had just gotten out of the shower. Fu had a bright smile on her face though as she ignored her modesty. "Hey Naruto. This place is great and man, your bath is so big and relaxing," she said brightly. Naruto, despite wanting her to put on some clothes, sighed as he smiled. "I am glad you like it, Fu. Now if you will put on some clothes we can go talk to the Hokage about you staying here permanently," he said with a soft smile. Fu nodded her head vigorously as she ran back to the room Naruto's clone told her would be hers. Naruto chuckled at her and left to his room to put on a fresh set of clothes as well. 10 minutes later the two were roof hopping towards the Hokage's tower. Fu seemed nervous about it at first, but seeing Naruto's calm and confident look she had calmed down. They arrived at the office and asked the secretary if they could go in, to which she smiled at Naruto and nodded. Naruto walked up to the door and knocked, and after receiving an enter, he walked in with Fu beside him, who had a nervous look again. Hiruzen looked and seen the two. He smiled at Naruto, but raised an eyebrow at Fu, who still had her Tokigakure headband on her arm. "Good afternoon Naruto-kun. Congratulations on making it to the finals. I have to ask, why do you have a Tokigakure genin with you?" he asked, curious. At this Naruto rubbed the back of his head. "Haha, you see, this here is Fu. She wants to become a ninja of our village and I plan to take her in under clan protection to do so. You see, she wasn't treated well in Taki due to certain reasons," Naruto said, pointing to his stomach at the end. Hiruzen widened his eyes at this and looked at the nervous girl. He sighed and rubbed his forehead. "Since you are using clan protection, there is nothing I can do stop this and I will have to allow it. Although she will need to be on a suspension period so that we can be sure she is loyal. Sometimes Naruto, I feel that you like to give me headaches," he said, chuckling at the end. "Do you know which one?" he asked after he had placed his hand on a seal on his desk to make the rest of the conversation private. Naruto nodded. "She is the host to the Nanabi," Naruto answered as Fu clutched onto his arm, hoping she wouldn't be treated bad by the Hokage for this. "I see. Fu, what color would you like for your headband?" Hiruzen asked, releasing the seal as he opened a drawer on his desk that was filled with different colored headbands. At this Fu smiled. "Red." She cheered, feeling better that he didn't care. Hiruzen nodded and he tossed a red one to her. She undid the one on her arm and replaced it with a new Konoha one. "Will we receive any problems from Taki over this, Naruto?" Hiruzen asked. He trusted Naruto to make good decisions and wanted to know what he planned to do. Naruto shook his head. "No, the leader of Taki is a coward and would likely have banished her when they found out that her teammates died in the Forest of Death. If they say anything, just inform them of the Akatsuki and that it would be better for her to come here," he said. Hiruzen nodded. "Okay, now I believe that you have been told Jiraiya is here and that Kakashi gave him something for you?" Hiruzen asked. Naruto nodded. "Alright then, you're dismissed. I am sure you know where he is," Hiruzen said, and Naruto nodded. Naruto turned to Fu and smiled. "Come on Fu-chan, let's go hit a pervert at the hot springs," Naruto said, smirking as he grabbed Fu's hand and led her out. Fu had a confused look on her face but nodded and followed Naruto out. Konoha Hot Springs. Perverse giggling could be heard from a tree right outside the hot springs as a uniquely dressed man sat in it with a pair of binoculars in his hands. He had long spiky white hair that had a ponytail at lower part of his back. He had red markings on his face and cold black eyes. He wore a red and green kimono top over a mesh shirt and red shinobi pants. For shoes he had a pair of jettas and on his forehead protector the kanji for oil was inscribed. This was Jiraiya of the Sannin and self-proclaimed super pervert, as well as the author of the popular book series Icha Icha Paradise. He was currently peeping on the girl's bath and writing in a notebook for his next book that he was writing. He felt someone tap on his shoulder and looked to his left to see a pretty girl with long blonde hair and that was developed in all the right areas sitting in the tree with him with a scary smile on her face. She wore an orange kimono top with black accents held closed by a black obi and had black skirt on under it. She wore thigh-high black socks and black shinobi sandals. "My mom told me to do this, oh sorry," the girl said in a cute voice before she punched a pale Jiraiya in the face who had finally recognized the girl and sent him flying into the hot springs female section. Female were heard screaming as a splash was heard before the sounds of male screaming was heard as he got beat to hell. The girl in the tree exploded in a puff of smoke before it cleared to reveal Naruto, who was using his sexy jutsu. He was laughing so hard that he had to hold his stomach and giggling was heard beside him as Fu was sitting on the other side of him laughing at the scene as well. "Ah, that's always fun," Naruto said, calming down as he wiped a tear from his eye. "Yeah, it was. Now I see why you have that perverted jutsu," Fu said, laughing next to him. She had been skeptical at first of his intentions when he showed her that jutsu until she seen what he did and couldn't help but laugh alongside him. "Yeah, laugh it up, brats," a voice said from behind the two and it was owned by Jiraiya, who looked like crap after getting beaten by the women in the hot spring. "HMPH Kachan told me to hit you in the nuts, so be happy that was your alternative," Naruto sniffed pompously before grinning. "Kachan, so I am guessing you found a safe way to perform the jutsu then?" Jiraiya asked with a hand on his chin. He too had been let in on the secret that only him, Naruto, and the Sandaime knew now, which was where Naruto was actually from. Plus he was with Naruto the day he had performed the Ito Tensei, which shocked the hell out of him that he knew the jutsu. "Yeah, I used a Uzumaki clan jutsu. Blood clones. The only difference it makes in the Ito Tensei is that I can only revive someone of my bloodline," Naruto explained to him. Jiraiya nodded, seeing what he meant. "Oh no, I'm confused," Fu said to them. Naruto and Jiraiya turned to her with a confused look before Naruto face palmed. "Haha, right, forgot you weren't at the preliminaries. You see, my parents are dead and my mother and father never got to say their goodbyes. I used a jutsu to bring my mom back and won the preliminaries with it and now she is going around to people she knew around the village to say her goodbyes. My father is a complicated matter though and I can't use the jutsu to do the same with him," Naruto explained to her. "Oh, I see. Sorry if I brought up painful memories," she mumbled. Naruto put a hand on her shoulder and smiled at her. "It's okay, Fu-chan. I got over it a long time ago. I am happy with my life now," he told her. Fu nodded and smiled at him. Jiraiya, seeing this, got a devious smirk on his face. "Oh ho, so it's Fu-chan, eh?" he said, smirking at a now blushing Naruto, followed by Fu, who blushed as well. "Shut it, pervy sage," Naruto yelled at him. Jiraiya gained a tick mark at this. "Oi. I told you to stop calling me that, Gaki," Jiraiya yelled back at him. Naruto just crossed his arms and smirked at him. "HMPH, fine, see if I give you the gift Kakashi got you for the finals," Jiraiya grumbled as he crossed his arms and turned around. In an instant Naruto was in front of him in his face with a huge smile. "Let me see it. What did he get me, ha, Naruto said really fast. Jiraiya smirked at and made a show of dramatically sighing as unsealed a black case from his arm before handing it to an excited Naruto. Naruto slowly opened the case and gasped at what was inside. He shakily raised it up for Jiraiya and Fu to see. "Is this what I think it is?" Naruto said as he rubbed his hand down the blade that Kakashi gifted to him. It was a tanto, except it was nothing like his ordinary one. The hilt was black and had a circular grey guard. The blade of the tanto was a pure white. Yep, the white light chakra saber of the Hada clan. He said it was time it was passed down again after he had it fixed. Jiraiya informed him. This earned a gasp of surprise from Fu as she knew that blade as it was made infamous from both Tsukumo and Kakashi. "Can you tell him I said thank you when you see him?" Naruto said as he wiped his eyes with his sleeve. He truly loved the gift that Kakashi had given him. "I will, brat. Now we both know you're more than powerful enough for the finals and Kakashi talking to you about training with me for the month in front of your teammates was just a cover for you to use. So with saying that you're free to do what you want for the next month," Jiraiya explained to Naruto, who nodded his head. Naruto then looked at Fu before looking at Jiraiya. "Hey Jiraiya, what nature transformations are you capable of?" Naruto asked, curious. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow at the random question but answered anyways. "Well, I am capable of using them all, but my main ones are earth, fire, and water. Why?" he asked after answering. "Well, since you're going to be here all the way up to the finals, why not train Fu-chan, then? She is a new shinobi of the leaf and will be either assigned a team or apprenticed to a jounin after the Chunin exams are over with," Naruto suggested, much to Fu's shock. It would be an honor for her to be trained by one of the Sannin. Fu, tell me about yourself. Jiraiya said to her. Fu looked a little nervous at first, but after an encouraging nod from Naruto, she straightened up and answered. Well, I am originally from Tokigakure and know the jutsu taught to all gen in the water sword. I know that by testing my affinity with chakra paper that it is earth, and with a lot of use of the water sword, I have developed a minor one for water now as well. I am also the Jinchuriki of the Nanabi. She said confidently. Jiraiya nodded, humming. He wasn't shocked as he had been briefed on the citation as he was hiding in the Hokage's office watching the meeting. He was sure Naruto noticed as well. And how well can you control its chakra? He asked her. In times of duress I can enter the initiative state, but I have been too afraid to try and go further since I didn't have someone to control me when I tried. She answered him. Alright, I'll train you, and in the process we can see about furthering your control over the Nanabi. He told her with a grin. Fu nodded with a happy grin, excited that she would receive training from a Sannin. Alright, then I will be heading home to say goodbye to Kachan. Naruto said with a sad smile as he waved them goodbye. The two nodded understandingly and waved him off. Alright Fu, the first step to see where you're at is chakra control, Jiraiya began. Back at the Uzumaki Namika's household. Naruto arrived home to find his mom waiting on him in the living room. The two had a tearful goodbye to which his mom threw in her last taunts of him having lots of children with multiple girls before Naruto ended the jutsu. He then sat down and meditated and allowed nature's energy to calm him down from breaking down and missing his mom. 1 month later, Chunin Stadium. During the last month all of the officials had been arriving, which included the cage of the 5 great nations alongside their daimyos. Even the secretive Mist Village sent their cage along with 2 guards. Which turned out to be Mei Terumi, who had won the civil war and killed Yagura to become the Gade Mizukage. Her guards were Ao and surprisingly Zabuza. Naruto though had not had time to talk to Zabuza as he was busy helping Jiraiya train Fu since his expertise with Jinchuriki was needed to help her. Kumo had A of course, with his guards being B and Dari. While Naruto was tempted to speak with B, he didn't want to arouse suspicions. I's cage was Inoki and his guards were Kuretsuchi and Akatsuchi. Tsuna's of course was Orochimaru in disguise and he had 4 guards with him, to which Naruto knew to be the Sound 4. Hiruzen at the insistence of Naruto had a hidden Jiraiya and Kakashi who wasn't hidden as his guards. Down in the arena all of the finalists were lined up prepared to go. This included Naruto, Sasuke who was surprisingly on time, to which Naruto guessed because Kakashi knew his was the first match. Sasuke was dressed in his new black outfit like last time as well. Sakura was there and she looked different as well as a result of her month with someone like Anko. She didn't ditch her red, but she was dressed in a sleeveless red top that stopped at her mid-drift, under of which she had a mesh shirt. She had a red skirt and a pink sash-like object tied to the right of it. She had a utility belt to hold her pouches. She had black sandals as well. The other finalists were Gaara, Neji, Kiba, Shikamaru, Tamari, Kankuro and Shino. Pei-8, who wasn't assigned to Shadow Kabuto, then approached them in the middle of the stadium and looked up at Hiruzen to await his introduction. Seeing this, Hiruzen rose out of his chair after checking to make sure the stands were full. In the room with the 5 cage were the 5 daimyo as well. In the stands all of the rookie 12 who hadn't made the finals were there as well, along with Rock Lee who was on crutches. Fu was there to cheer on Naruto as well. Welcome everybody to this year's finals of the Chunin exams. Hiruzen opened with and received a loud chorus of applause and cheers as this was the biggest one yet, with all 5 villages watching the finals. I will keep this short since I am sure the genin are excited for their chance to fight. I would like to personally congratulate all of this year's finalists, and with that I announce the beginning of the finals. He ended, earning another chorus of applause and cheers. Pei-8 then spoke up once the applause died down. Alright, can I get Sasuke Uchiha and Neji Hyuga to remain here? The other finalists need to go to the waiting area. He said to them. All except the 2 announced made their way to the waiting area to watch the match. Sasuke and Neji then stood to face each other as Hate was in the middle of the 2. Alright, are the 2 of you ready? The 2 nodded. Hajime. Hate called, bringing down his arm and leaping back. The 2 genin both instantly activated their Dojutsu, making those in the crowd excited. Neji smirked. I acknowledge your position as Rookie of the Year and look forward to this fig and realize that this is not a time for words. Neji called out. Sasuke narrowed his eyes and just watched Neji cautiously. Neji then charged forward to engage Sasuke in his clan's signature Taijutsu style. Sasuke, knowing the dangerous nature of it, utilized his Sharingan to the max and used his clan's interceptor fist to counter everything Neji threw at him whilst minimizing his chakra points from being closed. Seeing that he couldn't allow any more chakra points to be closed, Sasuke leaped whilst going through hand signs. Fire style. Phoenix Flower Jutsu. Sasuke called out, sending fireballs in Neji's direction. Neji smirked and entered a stance that caused many members of the Hyuga clan to widen their eyes. Father That's Hanabi started only to be interrupted by her father Hiashi. I know Hanabi. He said. 8 trigrams. Palm rotation. Niji called out, spinning whilst pouring out chakra from all of his chakra points. A blue dome of spinning chakras surrounded him and rebounded Sasuke's fireballs. The move ended and Niji smirked. HMPH, you will never be able to piece my defense Uchiha. He called out arrogantly. Sasuke ched and decided to try something bigger. He flashed through more hand signs and Niji smirked and entered the stance again. Fire style. Grand Fireball Jutsu. Sasuke called out as he put his fingers in front of his mouth and exhaled a huge fireball in Niji's direction. Rotation. Niji called out again and the huge fireball impacted his dome, but this time it caused him to sweat from the heat since he had to use a lot of chakra to use the technique. Knowing he couldn't waste any more, he rushed at Sasuke as soon as the fireball dispersed and he cancelled his technique. He entered a surprised Sasuke's guard and entered another stance that shocked many of the Hyuga whilst the onlookers watched the battle excitedly. You are in my field of divination. 8 trigrams. 64 palms. Niji called out and began striking Sasuke before he could put up his guard. 2 palms, 8 palms, 16 palms, 32 palms, 64 palms. Niji called out as he finished his technique. He looked to see Sasuke have a shocked look on his face as he fell to the ground before he, to the surprise of everyone there, popped into smoke. What? Niji yelled. He used his Byakugan and located Sasuke standing vertically on the stadium wall looking tired. Both fighters were panting actually from a lot of chakra use on their genin bodies. Sasuke smirked when he felt all eyes fall onto him. 2 words: shadow clone. When you have a teammate like mine who can use them liberally, you pick up how to use it. Unfortunately, I can only make 1 clone, but it was enough to make 1 and switch out with it after I used the Grand Fireball. He explained, getting approving nods from all the ninja there at his tactics, whilst the civilians just watched on excitedly. Now let's see your ultimate defense. Defend against this. Sasuke yelled out as he flashed through 4 hand signs and held out his right hands with his left holding his wrist. Lightning started to gather around his hand and gave off a screeching similar to birds. Although tired, Niji entered the rotation stance anyways. Many of the older ones in the stands turned to Kakashi in shock. Kakashi, why would you teach a genin in a rank assassination technique? Guy asked in shock. Kakashi boredly turned his gaze from the fight and answered the question. Well, I knew he would be fighting a tough opponent in the Hyuga and he needed a trump. Plus he knows not to kill his fellow Konohinin. He answered, causing them to sigh at him. Sasuke charged down the wall and towards Niji. The lightning tore up the ground in a trail following his hand that was encased in it. Once he neared him, Niji used his rotation again. Chidori! Yelled Sasuke as he drove his hand into the dome. The dome held for a second before it was inevitably pierced by Sasuke due to Niji's lack of chakra to keep it going. Sasuke continued forward and impaled Niji in the shoulder. Much to the relief of Kakashi, who was worried for a second there. Niji fell down to the ground, passed out from pain and exhaustion, whilst Sasuke fell to a knee panting from using too much chakra as well. Seeing this, Hade reappeared. Winner Sasuke Uchiha. He announced, causing the crowd to erupt into cheers at the amazing display of talent. Medics appeared into the stadium and carried off Niji as Sasuke made his way shakily to the stands. Page box. Those are some talented genin you have there, Hokage Dono. May the Mizukage commented once the match was over. Yes, especially the Uchiha. Orochimaru, disguised as the Kazekage, commented as he closely watched Sasuke amble off to the waiting area. Nonsense, that Hyuga was clearly a branch member, yet he knew the arts of the main branch. Inoki himself commented. But the Uchiha won. The Raikage commented. Yes, but winning is not all that is needed for a promotion. Hiruzen finally said. Sadly though, that boy's arrogance won him a poor lighting, so I am not sure if he will be promoted. He finished, turning nods from the others whilst Orochimaru just ignored him. Back in the stadium. Will Kankuro of the Sand and Shino Aburam please make your way to the stadium? Hade announced. I forfeit. Kankuro shouted from the stands since he didn't want to show off his skills in front of everyone before the invasion. This earned him some boos, to which he shrugged off, not caring. Alright then, Kiba, Inuzuka and Sakura Haruno, please make your way to the stadium. Hade announced, continuing on. Both genin then made their way down and stood in front of each other. Begin. Hade announced, leaping back. The battle was actually a fierce match, with Sakura capable of keeping up with Kiba due to her newfound control over Earth Release and her sensei's love of poison passing on to her. It actually ended in a draw, with Kiba succumbing to poisoning after he knocked Sakura out with a fang over fang jutsu. The crowd roared in approval, and even Sasuke gave his acknowledgement of Sakura's skill level once the match was over, much to her joy. Page box. Another batch of well-trained genin Hokage Dono. The girl has great control over earth nature and a good skill with poisons. The boy, while he may be called a typical Inuzuka, was still nothing to scoff at. May once again commented first. That girl has grown since I last seen her. Zabuza spoke up next, earning the other's interest. Seeing this, he continued. She is on a genin squad with the Uchiha and the Uzumaki. Back during our encounter she was little more than a civilian. To compare, the version we're seeing is like night and day. He informed them, earning nods. Yes, well, I am sure it's quite hard to be on a team with people like the Uchiha and Uzumaki alongside the copycat nin as well. I mentioned, earning nods. Back in the arena. Shikamaru and Temari had already started their match. Naruto noticed it went the same as last time, with Shikamaru showing his tactical genius but forfeiting right before he won, stating it was a drag much to the girl he was facing and his mother's ire. Then Hayate walked to the middle of the arena again. Now for the final match of the first round. Gaara of the Sand and Naruto. He was interrupted by a kunai landing next to his foot. As well, he was stating the names of the contestants. Naruto had looked at Hiruzen and held up a tri-pronged kunai whilst nodding, getting a nod from him as well. So as soon as he said his first name, Naruto let it fly, much to those watching him confusion. Inoki, however, noticed what the kunai looked like and widened his eyes in horror. To prove his point, Naruto disappeared from the contestant's box in a yellow flash and landed next to Hayate. Namikaze. Naruto finished for Hayate with a mischievous grin that earned him a troublesome from Shikamaru from the stands. All was quiet for a few seconds before the entire stadium erupted into cheers from the Konoha part. Yondaime-sama's legacy lives on. I knew him and Kushina-sama were together. For such things that were being thrown around. The rookie 12 were shocked, except for both Shino and Shikamaru, who put 2 and 2 together, which was why Shikamaru was explaining things for the ones who didn't know. A loud chakra-enhanced cough from the Hokage quieted everyone down. Thank you. Now, while I know this revelation may be shocking, we have a Chunin exam final to begin. He politely informed everyone. This caused them to all quiet down and turn their eager eyes to watch the match. Hayate nodded and stood in the middle of Gaara and Naruto, who were staring each other down. Begin. He said and leaped back. I will win here today, Gaara, and I will acknowledge your existence. He told her, getting wide eyes from her before she scowled darkly and allowed her sand to surround her protectively. Seeing this, Naruto brought out his first trump card. He unsealed a huge blue scroll and threw it into the air. He clapped his black gloved hands together. Unseal. He shouted, and the scroll unrolled itself in midair before a colossal amount of water rolled out of it and filled the stadium, causing Naruto and Gaara to have to water walk to continue the battle. This also had the effect of soaking Gaara. Naruto decided to begin the battle. He flashed through hand signs as an insane speed before lightning flowed through his hands. Lightning style. Flowing lightning. He shouted and unleashed it upon the water, sending it to Gaara. Gaara widened her eyes and leaped into the air to avoid it. Sadly, this was what Naruto was expecting. He flashed through more hand signs and brought his hand to his mouth. Lava style. Flowing magma. He shouted, causing Mei to widen her eyes at the style as well as Inoki. A huge wave of magma erupted from Naruto's mouth, flying towards Gaara's location in the air. Don't underestimate me. She shouted and met his lava with a wave of sand blocking it and causing the sand that met to glass over. I wasn't. She heard him whisper behind her before she felt a chakra-enhanced fist impact into her back, sending her flying across the stadium, bouncing across the water. Naruto landed on the water and held the serpent hand sign. Water style. Water dragon jutsu. He shouted, causing a roaring dragon to come out of the water and head towards Gaara. It impacted against her when she stopped rolling long enough to stand up. When the water died down, it revealed a dome of sand floating atop the water, letting Naruto know she was close to snapping. He unsheathed his tanto he had across the middle of his back. The tanto that was a gift to him from Kakashi. The white light chakra saber. All of those who knew it widened their eyes at it being repaired and in the hands of Naruto. Tenten had stars in her eyes as she looked at it and had a bit of drool come out of her mouth. Naruto then placed one hand above the other on the hilt and brought it close to his body as he entered a strange stance. Wine style. Divine spear. He calmly said. The only proof that something happened was the shimmer of wind chakra around the tip of Naruto's blade and the blood-curdling scream coming from the dome that now had a precise hole in it. It looked like a sword had just pierced it. My blood. This is my blood. Gaara screamed from her dome of sand as she looked at the blood leaking from her shoulder that had been pierced by the jutsu. The sand started to fall apart and surround her, turning her into a half-transformed bijuu. All the civilians were confused on the last part as they didn't see what had pierced the dome. The shinobi, however, were shocked at the wind-style jutsu he had just used. The speed on it was insane, and it was only a Sharingan-wielding Kakashi who could follow it. Then Gaara half-transformed and the shock turned into fear of a bijuu emerging right in the middle of Konoha. Naruto noticed the feathers had started falling and knew it was time. Completely ignoring Gaara, he clapped his gloved hands together and called out, Kai. And sent an overpowered chakra pulse washing over the stadium, causing the feathers that had started to fall to disappear. He then clapped his hands together once again and called out, Fuin. Grand Barrier. He shouted as he slapped his hands onto the water. Immediately an enormous amount of black lines spread from his position before they hit paper tags he had placed the night before in the stadium. Huge boxes of white translucent energy erupted around the spectators' boxes. The contestants had won, the spectators had won, and even the cage box had won. Also much to his shock, a barrier surrounded Orochimaru, who was about to set off an explosion in the cage box, and 4 more appeared surrounding the Sound 4. Another similar barrier to theirs appeared in the stands and surrounded Kabuto, who was watching the proceedings. Another barrier had surrounded the daimyo to protect them as well. Hokage don't know what is the meaning of this. I shouted as he and his guards prepared for combat, as well as Mei and hers and Inoki and his. Yes, Hokage don't know, please explain yourself. Why did that genin just seal off the entire stadium as well as Kazuki don't know? Mei asked as she tensed herself ready for battle. This all can be explained easily, right, Orochimaru? Hiruzen asked calmly as he turned towards the Kazuki. This earned gasp of shock from the other 3 cage as they turned towards Orochimaru, who was snarling as he ripped off his face cowl and revealed himself in all his infamous glory. How? Orochimaru seethed. Naruto is quite a smart boy and knew of your invasion plans beforehand. So he prepared all of this. Hiruzen calmly answered. The other 3 cage, seeing him calm, also calmed down as well. Yes, but the boy now has sealed off most of your shinobi force. How do you expect to protect your precious village from my army? Orochimaru said with a smirk. Hiruzen smirked as well as he pointed down to Naruto in the arena. Arena with Naruto and Gaara. Naruto crossed his hands into a seal he had used for most of his life. Shadow clone jutsu. He called out. Immediately the stadium was filled with clones. You all know what to do. Naruto told them. Protect the Leaf Village. He said. They all nodded and disappeared in yellow flashes to various markers around the village. Now for you, Gaara. Naruto said, turning his attention to her. She had a deranged smile on her face as she regarded him. You may have protected everyone else, but you won't be able to protect yourself. Plus let's see your barrier hold against this. She shouted as she held her hands in a hand sign. Ninja art. Playing possum jutsu. She shouted and instantly fell asleep, causing a wave of sand to erupt around her as she started to completely turn. Naruto, however, calmly sat down and meditated, much to those in the stand's confusion, except for Hiruzen and Jiraiya. Kakashi-sensei, what is Naruto doing? Gaara is turning into a monster and he is just sitting there. Sakura yelled, confused. Kakashi took a minute to answer her as he watched Naruto's chakra pathways with his Sharingan to confirm his suspicion. He is entering Sage mode. He finally answered her. Disclaimer. I do not own Naruto, sadly, so in the real story he is a talentless loser for most of the story. Spectator box. He is entering Sage mode. Kakashi answered Sakura. Sage mode? She asked in confusion while the others were interested as well, except for the older shinobi who were shocked to hear that one so young achieved it. Yes, a sage is a person trained to take the energy of nature itself into their bodies. Although it is very dangerous because if you take in the wrong amount you will die. To achieve it you need a summoning contract as well, and even if you had one not everyone can do it. The same could be said for me. I have a summoning contract with the dogs, but I couldn't achieve Sage mode. He explained to her. I see. She was interrupted by a loud roar and everyone turned their attention to see that Gaara had fully transformed into the Ichibi known as Shukaku. Naruto was standing up facing it down as well with a slightly new look. Back in the arena. I'm free. A slightly crazed distorted voice shouted out. It came from a huge raccoon-shaped animal made entirely of sand and with strange markings covering its entire body. Its tail was the same, except it was strangely segmented. Naruto was annoyed that another change in the timeline showed in the form of Gaara's body not being emerged from Shukaku's head, so he knew he had to do this the hard way. So you're Shukaku. A cold voice announced, making it freeze and look down to see Naruto glaring coldly at it with his arms crossed. Shukaku internally shivered at the resemblance he had with Yondaime Kazuki at the moment when he battled him and forced him down with his gold dust, just like the Sandaime Kazuki did with the iron sand. The one glaring coldly at him at the moment was slightly different than he was before Shukaku was released. He still had the orange long-sleeved kimono top and black hanbu pants. However, now over it was a red cloak with black flames licking the bottoms and a huge black scroll strapped across his back. And who are you, little worm? Shukaku crazily taunted Naruto. I am the one who is going to put you back. Naruto said as he unstrapped the scroll and threw it high in the air whilst clapping his hands. Unseal. He shouted. Shukaku meanwhile was annoyed with the water in the stadium and gathered his sand around him to flood the stadium with an absorbent. He looked up when he heard unseal and widened his eyes at what he saw along with everyone else in the stadium. Floating in the air dangerously above Naruto, who was still glaring at him, was the famous iron sand of the Sandaime Kazuki. This was Naruto's second trump card against Shukaku and Gaara. He had 2 more, but they were for drastic circumstances, of which he was sure he was going to have to use. Magnet style. Iron spears. Naruto called out, sending hundreds of spears made of the iron sand barreling at Shukaku. They all penetrated his huge body, making him roar in pain. Naruto didn't feel like questioning the logic of how something made of sand could feel pain though. Shukaku countered by swelling his body before punching it with his fist, sending out a huge bullet of air towards Naruto, who was already flashing through signs. Since he knew he couldn't counter the power of a bijuu's jutsu himself, he decided to defend. Earth style. Earth wall jutsu. He shouted, slamming his hands on the ground. A massive wall of earth rose just in time to take the bullet, but it decimated it. Naruto chided this. He knew he needed to bring in the big gun soon. He charged towards Shukaku, who laughed at him and swung a claw, making the crowd gasp. Naruto however caught it with both hands and lifted Shukaku in the air whilst yelling and threw him over his shoulder and slammed him on the ground behind him. If he could do it to the Kyuubi, he can do it to anything barring the Juubi. Everyone widened their eyes, wondering how the heck he could even lift that thing. Off in the distance, people seen the boss toad being summoned to combat a huge 3-headed snake, reminding them that Naruto was also holding off an entire invasion by himself at the same time he was fighting Shukaku. Naruto began flashing through hand signs immediately after throwing Shukaku. He was amassing a huge amount of chakra and nature energy for this technique. Finally he finished on the serpent hand seal. Sage art. Wood style. Wood dragon jutsu. He shouted, making everyone's jaws drop onto the ground when a massive wood dragon rose from the ground and wrapped itself around the Shukaku, binding it to the ground whilst sapping away its energy, as the wood style was known to do to bijuu. The crowd starting cheering wildly at the sight of Naruto wielding the legendary wood style and using it to bind a bijuu right in front of them. Now that Naruto had Shukaku bound, he had time to flash through more hand seals, however he noticed it wasn't going to be that easy as Shukaku started gathering positive and negative chakra, forming the most notorious bijuu technique. A bijuu bomb. Naruto widened his eyes as he seen this, as he was doing it in the middle of the village. Acting quickly, he leaped atop the Shukaku and brought out one of his father's kunai. He used the same stance his father did when he did the same thing Naruto was about to do. As soon as the ball was released, it impacted against Naruto's kunai and began to distort until it was sucked into it, and off in the distance an explosion was heard. Not playing around anymore, Naruto went through the hand signs he was trying earlier at an insane speed. He then clapped his hands once he was done. Sage art. Wood style. 10th Edict of Enlightenment. Naruto shouted and wooden spike pillars arose from the ground to surround Shukaku, who was still struggling against the wood dragon. When they were surrounded, tendrils of green energy shot from each spike and latched onto Shukaku. Shukaku roared one last time before all the sand fell away to reveal the unconscious form of Gaara. At this the crowd went wild. Age and Daimyo box. Hokage don't know, I don't even know where to begin with this. Mei said while the crowd was going wild. She was prepared for a highly skilled boil-style user of the Uzumaki clan, not what she just witnessed. Hiruzen was rubbing his forehead as if he had a headache, which he did. Yes, well, I would say discretion is not Naruto's strong suit, but I can understand the situation here. Hiruzen replied with a sigh. But still, to achieve this kind of level so young. Not to mention the amount of elemental Kekkei Genkai he possesses. Inoki muttered, seriously reconsidering their aggression towards Konoha. I am sure you were aware of his talent, or at least some of it. That was a sneaky move, using him to bring fame and contracts to Konoha Hokage Dono. O commented. This was proven when Hiruzen smirked. Well, he was technically still a genin. He said, amused. They all turned their attentions towards Orochimaru, who was looking hungrily in Naruto's direction at the moment, completely ignoring his earlier attempts to escape the barrier he was in. They then seen Naruto appear before them with a yellow flash and place his hands on Orochimaru's barrier before flashing them both to the stadium with Orochimaru still inside the barrier. Naruto looked directly at the Hokage with a hard look, and Hiruzen sighed and nodded his head gravely. But the spectators. All of the rookie 12, Jounin, and spectators watched on in awe of Naruto as he battled the bijuu and outclassed it completely, as well as his reveal of his several elemental Kekkei Genkai. Sasuke had a huge grin on his face as watched his rival. To think he acquired this strength here in Konoha and not somewhere else. Orochimaru was definitely wrong in saying that Konoha would hold me back. He thought in his head as he watched Naruto battle. Who watched with wide eyes at her new housemate's strength. What made it even bigger to her was that it was all him, not his bijuu. Then it was over and they were all cheering loudly for Naruto. But Naruto, after he flashed away with Orochimaru. Naruto gave Hiruzen a hard stare after he landed in the stadium again. Hiruzen gravely nodded to him and Naruto turned his attention back to Orochimaru, who was once again trying to escape the barrier he was in. By the now audience had calmed down and were looking on curious to see what was about to happen. Orochimaru of the Sannin. I am Naruto Namikaze, and I will not allow the leaf to fall. Naruto shouted, causing all sorts of cheers to arise in the crowd. Like many before you, you have fallen to the might of the leaf. Naruto continued loudly, which caused Orochimaru to direct his attention to Naruto. Your invasion has failed and you're caught in my trap. For all of your crimes against the hidden leaf you are hereby sentenced to death. Naruto said coldly. At this Orochimaru smirked. Oh, and how do you plan to do that, boy? I am immortal. Any wound you give me I will just make a new body. He loudly exclaimed back. Naruto just clapped his hands and placed them on the barrier, causing it to change. It became a white translucent tower with Orochimaru in the sky looking down on them. As Naruto was about to gather energy for what he was about to do, he was interrupted by Kurama's voice. Kid, I should probably let you know before you do what you're about to do that another change to the you of this world was that you held my yin chakra instead of my yang. So when I joined with it upon arrival I became complete once more. This means if we do a bijuu transformation, it will be physical, not energy based like you used in the war when you only had half of me. Kurama informed him. Naruto's eyebrow twitched, showing his annoyance at not having been informed of this beforehand. Thanks for the warning. He replied back irritably. Naruto sighed and turned towards all those in attendance. People of Konoha. He began shouting. Do not fear what is about to happen. I am in complete control. Just know that the horrible power that once sought the destruction of the leaf is now its protector. He shouted, confusing the men, making Hiruzen widen his eyes. Naruto clapped his hands together and began to merge with Kurama. Naruto then began to change before the very eyes of Konoha. He sprouted one huge long orange furred tail, before another sprouted, following it were 7 more, and he grew in mass, becoming so tall that his body and head reached the top of the stadium. Of course it was no longer his body and head, for he had completely changed into the thing that had haunted Konoha for years since the attack. He was the Kyuubi itself in a full physical body. He looked majestic with his 9 tails lazily waving behind him as he sat down on his haunch. Naruto, seeing the fear began to grow in most of the crowd, decided to placate them. Do not fear, I am still in control. He informed them in Kurama's voice, shocking them. Naruto then turned his massive head towards Orochimaru, who was still higher in the sky, for safety. He opened his jaws and began to gather positive and negative chakra, coalescing it into a massive bijuu bomb. He launched it skyward towards Orochimaru and it detonated into a huge explosion once it reached him. His screams, if he had the chance to, could not even be heard over the shock wave the blast caused. Once it was over, Naruto shifted back. All was silent in the stadium once Naruto changed back. Then several hundred yellow flashes appeared in the stadium, which revealed all of Naruto's clones back, some covered in the blood of their enemies, while others had tied up Sand Ninja with them, as they had been informed beforehand to not kill Sand Ninja. One clone approached Naruto and kneeled. It's over, boss, we won. The village is safe once again. Naruto nodded. Good, then take all of the clones and begin repairs at wherever the damage was. He informed the clone, who nodded, and they all flashed away again. Then it erupted, everyone there cheering loudly for Naruto. Naruto just smiled to them and waved after he clicked his fingers to bring down all of the barriers. All of them were coming down out onto the field and swarmed him, giving their praise for keeping the village safe. But the cage. Well, I think we should probably end the exams there then. Hiruzen said as he stood up, looking down at Naruto with a fond smile. Yes, I believe we should as well. I am needed for an emergency meeting back at my village. It was good seeing you again, Hiruzen. Inoki stated as he floated into the air. Yes, I as well. Mei stated as she too arose. Me too. Plus I am sure that Suna will need to hold a meeting as well, seeing as their cage is dead. I said, rising up as well. I am sure you all do. It was good hosting you here. Hiruzen said, nodding his head to them before they all shunshined away along with their bodyguards. With one bodyguard of their respective country taking their daimyo with them. This left Hiruzen alone with the third lord. Kazuki-sama, I believe we need to have a meeting as well. I am retiring from my position. Hiruzen said, bowing his head towards the Fire Lord, who hid his face behind his fan. Oh well, I guess you are getting older, Hiruzen. Very well, let's call the council to order. I would like to get this settled quickly. Kazuki said with a smile as he discreetly looked at the blonde being lifted into the air. Hiruzen nodded and shunshined away to gather the necessary members. 4 hours later, with Naruto and Fu in their home. After Naruto had finally gotten home, he had been tackled by Fu, who had been crying, and she hugged him fiercely. She then proceeded to chew him out for worrying her by taking on an entire invasion and bijuu on all by himself. But Fu, I won. Naruto muttered. At this she gave him a glare before she resulted in tears again as she hugged. Baka, I was still worried about you. She said quietly. She looked up at him and smiled a bit before she kissed his cheek, causing him to blush. That was for saving everyone. She said as she blushed a little bit too. At this Naruto smiled down at her. Naruto. I have seen how well you can control your bijuu and was wondering if you would train me and show me how as well. She asked him. Sure Fu-chan. Naruto cheered. Their moment was interrupted by a knock on Naruto's door. Naruto sighed and walked over to it and opened it to reveal an Anbu. Yes? Naruto asked. Their presence is required in the council chambers, Namikaze-sama. The Anbu informed him. Naruto nodded and turned to Fu. Hey Fu-chan, I will be right back. I need to go to the council. He informed her. She nodded and went to the living room. Okay Anbu-san, let's go. Naruto said. The Anbu nodded and grabbed Naruto's shoulder before the two of them shunshined away. Council chambers. Naruto and the Anbu appeared in the middle of the chamber before the Anbu disappeared again. Naruto looked around to find himself surrounded by the Shinobi Council in the form of the heads of the major clans of Konoha, the Hokage's advisors, the Jounin commander, the Anbu commander, the Hokage, and the Fire Lord himself. Naruto kneeled before them. How may I be of service, Hokage-sama? Naruto said, formally, knowing he couldn't play around in their presence. There were some chuckled heard around the room at his address. You can rise, Naruto-kun. You're here to be informed of something. Hiruzen said with a mischievous smile. Naruto rose an eyebrow but nodded and rose up with his hands in his pockets. At this the Fire Lord rose and Naruto locked eyes with him. He smiled at Naruto before he began. Naruto Namikaze, it my pleasure to inform you that by the decision of this council and the retirement of Hiruzen that you are to be named the Goddamn Hokage. He informed him. Naruto widened his eyes and looked shocked. This was a huge change in the timeline. I am honored. Thank you. Naruto said after a minute once he found his voice. Yes, it was quite a shocking decision. Hiruzen said to Naruto, remembering the meeting. 2 hours ago during the meeting. Hiruzen had gathered all the necessary people for the meeting. Once they were all seated he arose. I have called this meeting to make an announcement. I have decided to retire from being the Hokage. With this announcement we must now choose a new Hokage. This was a faster process due to the fact that we have Kazuki-sama already here with us. Hiruzen told his slightly shocked council. They were actually not that shocked since it was going to happen sooner or later due to Hiruzen's age. I see, then I nominate Kakashi Haddock. Shikaku Nara said. There were some murmurs from the gathered council. Well, he was the 4th student. One member said. He has the experience. Plus he is one of our strongest jounin. Another said. I nominate Naruto Namikaze. Danzo said, putting a stop to all conversation as well as getting wary eyes from Hiruzen and Shikaku. You can't be serious, he is just a boy. Homura said, disapproving. A boy who just proved to us that he can protect this entire village from an invasion single-handedly. A boy who is now being named the hero of the Hidden Leaf. A boy who is the direct descendant of the 4th Hokage who was his father. Danzo fired back calmly. What about experience? He may be powerful, but he has been just a genin and has never led a team, much less an entire village. Kaharu informed him. Well, that may be so. He will have to choose a personal council. All we have to do is have experienced members in this place. He will quickly adapt. Danzo said, still calm as ever. What about the fact that he just revealed his status as a Jinchuriki? Hiruzen, by the way, why didn't you inform us of this? Hamaru asked both Danzo and Hiruzen. The village was in disarray at the time and it was his father's last wishes when he sealed it into Naruto to not let anyone be informed for the fear that he may be ostracized for holding back the very beast that nearly destroyed our village. Hiruzen said calmly. Homura nodded, seeing his point. He then looked at Danzo for the answer to the other question. That's what makes this all the easier. He just demonstrated at 13 years of age perfect control over a tailed beast, going so far as to completely transform and remain in control the entire time. He killed a traitor to the leaf and did not attack the leaf itself when he easily could have done so. By placing him in this position it will show the Leaf Village trust him as well as him being a beacon of hope and inspiration for the next generation. Danzo said with spirit, surprising Hiruzen a bit as he could detect no underlying intentions from the man. Amura nodded at this, accepting the answer. He has also bolstered out forces unintentionally by convincing the Jinchuriki of the 7 Tails to join our village. With his perfect control over his beast, I have no doubt he will be able to teach her how to control hers. What's more better is he did it while having an easy plan to convince her village leader she is safer with us. He informed the shocked council. Hiruzen narrowed his eyes, wondering how Danzo came across that information. I believe I have heard enough. Kazuki said, snapping his fan shut. All the members of the council turned to him. I have made my decision. The Goddamn Hokage shall be Naruto Namikaze. Kazuki said. This gained an approving nod from all of them there as the information provided did prove he was capable. Your induction shall be held tomorrow morning on the roof of the Hokage's tower. Hiruzen said to Naruto. Naruto nodded his head. He unsealed his red sage jacket and gave it to Hiruzen. Can you inscribe the lettering on the back of this cloak? Naruto asked. Hiruzen nodded and accepted the cloak. Be here tomorrow morning at 8. The ceremony will begin at 9. Hiruzen said, dismissing Naruto. Naruto nodded and flashed away using the Hiraishin. He reacted the same way his father did. He was humble about it while also asking for his sage cloak to have the lettering and flashed away just like Minato. Kaharu said, staring fondly at the spot Naruto just flashed away. Hiruzen just chuckled. Yes, hopefully his reign will be longer than his father's. Hiruzen said sadly. The others there nodded. Naruto arrived back at his house in shock. He walked into the living room and seen Fu sitting there likely waiting on him. Once she seen him she rushed up to him. Well, how did it go? Is everything alright? She asked worriedly. I've been named the 5th Hokage. He said numbly, still unable to come to terms with the fact that he actually accomplished his dream. Fu looked up at him shocked. Really, that amazing, Naruto-kun. I am so happy for you. She said, hugging him. Naruto hugged her back, feeling the excitement starting to bubble in him as well. We should celebrate. Fu said. Naruto nodded. Yay, but let's do it here because I have to be at the tower early in the morning. He told her. She nodded happily and the two stayed up for a while celebrating by themselves. The next morning Naruto flashed directly to the Hokage's office, or more specifically his office. Hiruzen was already there and looked like he was expecting Naruto as he had some clothing set out for him. These were something your father left for you should you ever make Hokage. He gave them to me as he felt that I should be the one to pass them down to you. Hiruzen said, explaining about the clothes. They have seals on them to grow with you. He said. Naruto looked at the clothes with a heavy heart. It was a long-sleeved black shirt with a white ring around the wrist and black Anbu pants, as well as black ninja sandals. A mesh shirt was there as well for under armor. His sage cloak now with a lettering labeling him as the 5th Hokage was laid out for him. Naruto felt a few tears drop but wiped them away. He picked up the clothing and left for the bathroom in the tower. He returned dressed in the full outfit, sage cloak included. Hiruzen looked at him with a fond eye. You look just like both of your parents. A perfect mix between the two. He said. Naruto looked at Hiruzen with thanks. Thanks for everything, Jiji. Naruto said. Hiruzen and looked at the clock on the wall. Well, it's time, Naruto, let's head to the roof. I am sure the whole village has gathered out front by now. He said with a smile. Naruto nodded and flashed the both of them to the roof. Arriving, it was to see a wave of people out in front of the tower looking up at it with curious eyes, wondering what was going on. Naruto felt nerves build up but shook them away. He and Hiruzen then walked to the edge so that everyone was able to see them. Once they spotted Naruto, they began cheering for their savior. Hiruzen raised his hand though to silence the crowd, which they did so. People of Konoha. We have come here today for a grand occasion. Hiruzen began once they had quieted down. It has come time for me to retire my place as your Hokage. He continued, earning gasp from the smarter members of the crowd, figuring out why Naruto was with him. Hiruzen then turned towards Naruto. It with my great honor that I announce that with the approval of the council and our daimyo, that Naruto Namikaze is named our Goddamn Hokage. She announced loudly. Then a tidal wave of roars of approval rang out over the crowd as they watched Hiruzen remove his hat and place it on Naruto's head, who was kneeling. Naruto then stood up and looked over the crowd, raising his fist in the air, smiling. The roars got even louder. What if Naruto befriends all bijuu in Chunin exams? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part. Comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys next video.